Hey everybody, welcome to Stage 8 of the Stage Clear podcast. I'm your host, Tim. This is my co-host, James. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, guys? Yeah, what's up, man? Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Hopefully, we're gonna have a wonderful episode, and yeah, I'm looking forward to just unpacking some of these topics.
Oh yeah, always got some good stuff for you guys. We appreciate you guys listening, you guys following. Hit us up on those, any place you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Audible, YouTube, all that stuff. Google Podcasts, we're also there now. So any platform, leave a 5-star review, a rating. We'd love to hear for your feedback. Let us know what you think. It's funny because like I'll go out in public and I'll talk to my friends and stuff, and then we love the podcast, or like we like the clips you're doing and stuff.
That's
Um,
funny.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. So we're getting a lot of verbal, good positive feedback. We gotta let the algorithm know that though. You know what I'm saying? Hit that
Yes.
like button, hit that comment, let the algorithm know you like it. Tell somebody too. That'd help us out a bunch. Um, and if you're here on YouTube, you know that we have a bunch of different outlets too. It's not just the 3 however long podcasts we make. It gets kind of long sometimes, but we also do segments, little sections of the podcast. So give those likes, check those out. If you don't have all the time to listen to the full cast, perfectly fine. Go look for it on YouTube, Stage Clear Podcast, and you'll find different hot topics we discussed in each episode, different playlists for each episode, all sorts of ways to consume the content. So let us know how it's going. We'd love to hear from you. Without further
Definitely.
ado, we can go ahead and get into weeks. I'm sure it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, man. Always, man.
So how
Um,
was your week, buddy?
you know what, man? It's gone pretty good, man. It's been actually pretty smooth. I'm actually planning on seeing the Sonic movie, maybe after we finish this podcast. So,
Oh,
yeah. So one of my friends contacted me this morning and told me like she really enjoyed it. She's planning on taking her son. I think like she's gonna go again and take
yeah.
her son because like her son wasn't with her before. I think with her father and all that, and with his father. But yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it. She really kind of reminded me like, man, get on this movie. Like this is our thing. So
Oh yeah.
uh, yeah, I was gonna just hang back and just kind of maybe see it tomorrow or another day when I was free. But yeah, she made it seem like no, it's really exciting. Just check it out. So
The
um,
opportunity presented itself.
yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna check it out. But actually, actually, very shortly before we started, I seen a email from my soccer job, my sports job, and it's so funny because I seem to have this ongoing conflict with them in regards to my schedule on Tuesdays.
Okay.
You know, yeah, and it's funny because um, I in the mornings on Tuesdays I actually get up fairly early because I want to beat the traffic, and I have to drive about 40 miles into Orange County to Laguna Niguel. I have 3 classes there, amazing families. I love the children. I love the families there. I actually like this location, so I think they've been wanting to kind of remove me from this place because they feel like it may be too far for me. But once a week going that distance, I actually don't mind.
Yeah.
And then I come, yeah. But I usually just kind of let them know, and I've been arranging my schedule. I've been talking to them periodically. Um, I don't mind, working in Los Angeles. I'm in Los Angeles technically, even though I'm very close to Orange County as well, being in Norwalk. But yeah, I just said, it's probably best that I just do those classes for Tuesdays because I get up so early. And by the time I make it back, it's already afternoon. I've already
Yeah.
driven 80 miles,
Whole day, you're done.
Yeah. Even though it's like, yeah. So, but it's interesting because they kind of seem to always go back to adding like an afternoon class in somewhere in LA. And so, so I actually was about to put an email together before we started, and then I said, you know what, I actually need to take some time on this before,
Sleep on
you
it?
know, I, yeah. I mean, I'm probably gonna write it after we're done, or maybe after
Yeah.
Sonic or something. But yeah, it just seems like it's ongoing, man. And I've already let them know my afternoons are unavailable, and so I know that the job is very busy, but I don't know what's going on. I don't know if they're not paying attention or
I mean,
and
you
I can
can't
ask.
just tell them no.
I mean, I can. I mean, that's what I'm gonna do. But I think what's annoying for me is that it keeps happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it keeps that, yeah. And I could just not show up. You know, for the Tuesday
That's
class,
not
and
James. That's not,
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
not your
well, yeah,
word.
that,
That's
yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, it would be a hard way to go, to kind of say, oh, dang, what happened? It's like, oh, hey guys, yeah, the last few months I've been letting you know that remember, only Orange County, not Orange County and then LA.
yeah.
We've already, I already have emails that said, hey, I'm unavailable in the afternoon, so I don't want to, I don't want to drag it out. Like, it's just after a while, it's almost like, okay, somebody's not listening or what's going on, So
No, for sure. I think we've talked about this a couple times, but it's like it's important to stand up for yourself and knowing that, right? I think you have a good
absolutely,
opportunity because, like I said, you want to have your reputation. You're going to show up, But if they're not respecting your scheduling, like just make it clear in that email, like, hey, I've told you this before. This evenings are not a go,
mm-hmm.
right? I can't do them, and
Mm-hmm.
then I will not make it clear you're not going to show up then, so that they should make
Mm-hmm.
other arrangements. Just so it's not like left up in the air and then you don't show up and then it's a whole fiasco.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just it's been ongoing, so it could possibly have been going into a year now. I'm not sure, but it's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, you
So
definitely
it's been
have
a
grounds to, especially, the coach of the season. Come on. How are they going to
right.
treat coach of the season like that?
Come on, So I don't know. It's I mean, I try to look at it from different angles as well. I know that our job can be very demanding, and I know that I don't know. Sometimes maybe people are in the office or in our administration, maybe they are trying to fill up classes and they're overlooking. Oh, actually, Coach James is not available. But I think what's really tricky for my job, and this is something I think I should mention, is about 2 weeks ago I wrote one of those emails and I said, hey, make it clear, I'm unavailable for this time frame after 1 o'clock, and I just kind of because that pretty much just kind of eliminates anything added to what I already do, you know. Um, but I think the following week, one of our administrators said, "Hey, even though I know you don't work Tuesday afternoons, we actually had somebody that was unavailable. They're sick. They're. Is it
Okay.
possible that you can take this class?" And I said, "You know what? I do want to be a team player. Absolutely, I will take this class. For this time, and now I see that I'm back in this class at the same time, and it's like, so yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah,
sure
it's
by the end
it's
of the day it'll be
tough.
yeah,
It's tough towing the line because, and like we said before, like these companies have their own agenda, right? And you want to offer the respect of like, this is my man, I'm a man, this is my word, and I said I'll be here, I'll be here. I want to be a team player for the right. But it's like, do they garner that respect by returning the favor? A lot of
yeah,
times it's like just for, I guess, perception, right? That they're trying to be a family atmosphere and like help you out and stuff. But brass
yeah.
tacks, they need someone to be there. They'll take the social credit of like losing your respect a little bit as long as that position gets filled, right?
There you go, there you go. And to be honest with you, I've told you before, just within the last 12 months, I've had at least three different coaches approach me um, with their equipment,
Yep.
and I find out right at the moment they're actually quitting. And they're giving me their equipment because they're done. And some of them, it hasn't even been a year. So it really demonstrates to me that we do have some issues.
Yeah.
We do have issues. So
And it is
I'm
it is
assuming.
issues, right? Not just like seasonal jobs, because I always felt bad leaving, but I haven't had like the longest job I had was like a year, right? That was security,
Oh,
but my
mhm.
jobs before them were like summer jobs, right? So it's not like a
Oh,
seasonal
yeah.
thing; it's just structural.
No, it's all year round. I mean, it does. Ironically, it does slow down in the summer, which you would think it's soccer. You would think the opposite, right? But I think what happens is a lot of the families that we service, most of them vacation at that time.
Yeah,
They vacation. And I'm not going to say we're the top notch, but we are a little bit more on the higher end. I will say I've seen celebrities, and people I've recognized in commercials in our class are their children. People I've known from in some of the movies I have in my collection. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know they had a child. Whoa, so yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. Very interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, so it does make sense. These families they usually travel in the summer, because they're preoccupied with school and everything else, the rustle and bustle.
yeah.
But yeah,
No,
man, um, yeah, but yeah, it's just kind of puts me in a very awkward position because I feel like I'm repeating myself, and I don't want to be one of those guys where it's like I don't show up and they're like, well, hey, what happened? It's like, well, did you check the email 2 weeks ago? And here's
Yeah.
the date and the title, and so yeah, it's almost like it's like it's one thing to, and I'm going to be careful with my words. It's one thing to work with children, and you get paid to work, to work and service, these children. And so the occasional child that may pick up grass and start tossing it on me or their friends, there's something in me is like, yeah, this is not the best position. I don't really care for this, but I am getting paid for this.
Yeah.
I am getting paid, and in my opinion, fairly well for this job, this type of job. Um, but when you have adults that you're dealing with, and it's almost like I don't know, it's like the same issues, and you're dealing with the immaturities to some extent. It's almost like, well, like there's no payment for this. There's no payment for this.
Dealing with
At least
adults.
we
Yeah.
have something that they're like, this is the adults.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just yeah. It's one thing. It's like, hey, here's some money just to deal with the foolishness.
That sure
but
would
yeah,
make
so,
it a lot easier, right?
yeah. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm getting paid to deal with this, but just to be, more on the serious side. Yeah, it's a little. It's like, okay, is someone not paying attention, or what's going on? Or,
Yeah, no, I get you. You feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's not respected, and that's definitely
There you go. Yeah,
yeah.
because after a while, after it's a few months, it's like, okay, what's going on? Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that's your email, just like what's going on, You've let them know about this, and it's the 12th, 20th, whatever time you get scheduled. So
Mhm.
that's a conversation worth having with them for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but
But but that's probably the juiciest part of my week, to be honest with you.
well,
That's
you mentioned you're going to see Sonic soon, right? And that's a whole thing I'd like to get into is like I haven't seen the other Sonic movie, right? So you saw the first one?
yeah, I actually own it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really
Okay.
enjoyed
Yeah, no, I heard it was good. And like it looked there was a bunch of like hullabaloo about it because originally the original CGI looked awful and then people screamed at
it.
them and they
I
changed
remember
it,
that.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
they did a good job, but I love that. I love that they made the change. It was awesome. It was
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's great. It looks a lot better now, and I still have to see it. But yeah, it's like I said, I heard it was good. Two of my friends back in college, they went to see it, and they like pre-gamed before, so they were already a little tipsy, and they were expecting like it to be a terrible video game movie, right? Like we've come to
Mm,
expect. But they loved
really?
it. They loved it. It was good.
Really? This
um,
is the recent one?
no, the first one.
Oh, the first one. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so I've
okay.
been meaning to see it. I haven't got around to it. I probably am going to see it, and then, like I said, watch this second one because this second one, the trailers actually look pretty good. It makes me more interested in it. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I have to say, just in the first movie, like I feel like Jim Carrey by himself just did a
as
phenomenal
Eggman,
job.
yeah,
I'm telling you, even if they remove Sonic, I mean, I love Sonic, don't get me wrong, but even if they just removed him and it was just about Jim Carrey's Eggman getting involved in all, I would have just watched the movie just for that.
because he's
He is just so,
entertaining enough.
oh my goodness, and I feel like I forgot how funny this man was, but with
Yeah,
this role, he went right back into it, right back in the Ace Ventura, all that stuff. Man, he's just hilarious. I just, oh, and the only thing I'm concerned about is
he won't wear the
is
fat suit. He won't put the fat
actually
suit
he's
on
open
for
to it.
us.
He's open to it. I heard him in an interview.
Really?
He's open to it. Yeah, yeah. He actually would like that evolution of Eggman. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But my only, and I don't know. Maybe this is something we can either address now or in the future. But he's been actually sharing in a lot of different interviews now that he actually is planning to retire very soon with acting indefinitely.
I heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and something tells me that the Will Smith slap.
Well, he had a big take
It,
on that for sure.
he really did.
So
He really did.
put a pin in that. Remember that for a little bit. I want to finish up on
Yeah,
Sonic here real quick.
yeah, yeah. Go for it. Go for it.
What history do you have with the games? Because I know not even just the movies, but there's a lot of controversy around like the older games, like 1, 2, and 3, versus like the newer, 3D games that came out the early 2000s, which I grew up with, that I love, and I haven't necessarily played the older ones, that are the retro 2D.
Good.
Yeah, yeah, what Sonic is kind of known for. And I haven't played any games since. It's more so nostalgia from my childhood of some of the older Sonic games, like Sonic Adventure
Right.
2 and Shadow the Hedgehog and, you know,
Yeah.
other
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff. So that's where I'm coming from with my love of Sonic, and I know that could be
Yeah.
warped or different views, and people have a lot of different opinions on it. But what's your take? What's your history with the franchise?
My gosh, man. Wow. Wow. It's really taking me back, man. I just remember the Sega Genesis console just being associated with Sonic. Like you just immediately think of Sonic. And I remember just even the first game, the first cartridge, and I kid you not, I probably still have all of my old cartridges from you know,
Nice.
you know. I mean, yeah, exactly. But I just fell in love with the character. The songs were
The
just very
music's always been good.
yeah, yeah. This Sonic team, they've always done a very good job with the musical scores and just I don't know. Part one was really just I just fell in love, and then part two came out, and there's Tails, like he has
Yeah.
some help, and I thought that was so cool. Like, okay, and then there was like a Metal Sonic, and Eggman became a little bit more elaborate with his. But I just remember feeling like there's such a high for Sonic because I just felt like every game at a point was always pushing
The
um,
boundaries.
the franchise. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In my opinion, it slowed down a little bit when it started going into the 3D stuff.
Okay.
Sonic Adventure 1, I fell in love with that
Really?
completely. And part 2, yeah, those were like,
So
Shadow the Hedgehog when he showed up.
you played
Oh, yeah.
those? You played Adventure 1 and 2?
I literally still have them for Dreamcast when they first came out. They first came out on Dreamcast.
Okay, we might be thinking of different things. Because I know
Uh,
Sonic
I,
Adventure Battle 2, I guess, was on the GameCube,
okay,
and then I
okay,
think
okay.
that probably had a prequel or a first one that was also a 3D. Right. I guess that's the change. The transition from 2D side scroller to like 3D.
Well, Sega, once upon a time, obviously they used to be not only developing their games, but they had a console.
Console.
They
Yeah,
had their,
that's right.
but then they stopped after Dreamcast, and they became only a developer.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, everyone was allowed to have their games. They became a developer. So at first, it kind of bothered me because I was thinking, like, man, I used to fight for Sega. Like, I used to debate people about the Sega consoles being the best. And I kid you not, every console they have except for the I think the Master System, but I have all of the
Wow.
Sega consoles still. The Saturn, I have the Dreamcast, I have the Sega CD, Sega 3DX, all this stuff, So yeah, I had a lot of this stuff, and I fell in love with what they were. But Sonic has always been one of those. I don't know. I almost feel like, sure, I expect kids to kind of resonate. He's colorful, but I almost would expect the guys of my generation to also, who's kind of like in the nerd,
Yeah, yeah.
who appreciate this stuff. Yeah, we're all watching this movie.
The
We're all watching.
console war veterans from like the Genesis versus what, Super Nintendo?
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, yeah. That was a rough one, man. Because it was hard trying to,
Yeah.
um,
See, I grew up in the battle of Xbox versus PlayStation. That's the fight I lived
uh,
in, right? I was born into. Um, but yeah, no, it's nice
a
to have
little
an old
bit.
veteran on the show.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, kid, let me tell you some stories, kids.
tell us stories
Sit
about the
around the
Sega.
fire. Sit around the fire.
Oh man. Yeah. So how do you
Oh,
feel about I guess how they transitioned the games from like a 2D side scroller to like the 3D adventure games?
yeah, I mean, I know that there were, like there was like one Sonic game that was Sonic 3D something that came out, and it was still only like the Genesis. But I know that over time they were always trying to explore that. Even with Sonic CD, they tried to explore. But I think the best one was Sonic Adventure. That's when they like did it, and it was just done right. It
Yeah.
was done right. Then they introduced all these characters, and I just loved how, I don't know if you played part one.
So
It's
is
pretty good.
that one of the 3D games or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's when Shadow wasn't introduced yet.
yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't
Okay.
play part 1. I played part 2 on the GameCube and I fell in love with that game as a kid. It's one of my favorites. I
Yeah. Oh, it's a really good game.
yeah.
It really did a really good job with connecting with the first one. But I don't feel like the first one. Yeah, it just I don't know. Like there's certain games where they a company will kind of experiment and they kind of it's a hit or miss. But yeah, with Sonic Adventure, they hit it. They hit it.
Uh-huh.
They hit it. And then it was just so expansive because you can play like I don't know multiple characters and basically all their stories connected
Oh yeah.
together. So it reminded me of the Resident Evil 2 kind of thing. It was like
Oh, really the different
and
yeah.
oh yeah. You play Sonic, and then it's like after a certain point, once you meet certain people, you can play other characters and keep going. But you can see what other people were doing before they encountered Sonic, or after, or. But it was really well done, really well done.
I think I like I said, Sonic always meant to me those like 3D adventure games where you can play different characters. They have different stages, right? That's what it always meant to me. But it took until I became older and learned about the older games, and people are actually very passionate about how the 3D games aren't Sonic. It's not the same, and I have to admit that because I would always get confused as a kid because at the end you'd get a score, right? It'd be like you get a grade for how good you did. And I always got E, D, or F, and Sonic was always like, "Oh, nuts" or something, right? And I was like, "I thought I did good," but I
Oh
didn't.
yeah, that always yeah.
I didn't realize because as a kid I was just playing and having fun. I didn't realize that it was meant to be a speed run. You were supposed to get to the end as fast as you could, you know,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
that's kind of essential to Sonic, And the fact that I didn't get that, I can understand where people are coming from. Where these games have kind of shifted. What Sonic was, what it meant. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
better or worse,
yeah.
but
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I feel like the character, much like Mario, has always been evolving. Always evolving, and even with like Mario, starting out as 2D, and but Sonic, yeah, he just. I remember when he just showed up, like there was something about the speed factor that it stood out
yeah,
because there was no other character doing that. There was no other character doing that. And the other character would be Mario, and he went at his own pace, and but Sonic, he was literally speeding through loops, going through walls, and you're like, whoa,
yeah,
turning into a ball, and
yeah.
whoa, your spin
The
dash,
homing
and yeah,
attack and all that.
yeah. So it just really, I don't know, they really did a really good job with this character. I mean, I do remember at one point, the Sonic games kind of slowed down. Like, I think after Sonic Adventure 2, I almost feel like they start going into other games and concepts, and it
Yeah.
really wasn't going as strong.
It,
But I think what's helping is these movies are, you know,
oh, for sure. And then also even the second movie, the main poster isn't that like the video game art, the box art
yes,
from
it is.
2?
Yes, it is.
That is
And it's funny
awesome.
because I still have to take a cartridge,
Oh,
and everything.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and yeah, it's just so
You got to
nice
do
to
a
see,
picture. You got to do a picture. We'll post
right?
it of
Oh,
you
oh
seeing
yeah.
the movie with the cartridge, like with the poster.
Oh, oh my gosh. It's funny because I was like driving to visit my mom just recently, and I seen, this huge poster like painted on like I don't know, like a building. And I just looked at it like, wow, like Jim Carrey is Eggman. Like it's exactly like when I picked it up in stores,
Yeah, that's what they're going
I was
for.
like, wow, I love it. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see that one. All the promotional videos have been really good, and I'm excited to see Knuckles. Right, Idris Elba playing Knuckles. That's wild,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
Uh,
it really is. Yeah, it really is. That's wild. That's wild.
um, but yeah, as far as the games go, like I said, I fell. You played Adventure 2 Battle or whatever with when they introduced Shadow and everything.
Yeah, yeah,
That was on
yeah,
GameCube or I guess other platforms, but
yeah. Is that Silver as well? Do you know about Silver?
is that the one where Sonic turns into a wolf?
No, no, that I
Okay,
never played that
because you're talking
one.
about the downturn, and that's
I
what
never
I'm
cared
thinking
for that
about.
one. Okay. So I'll put it. I think there was a Sonic game that came out on Xbox, one of the Xboxes, and I'm trying to remember. Did it come for anything else? Maybe it came for GameCube, maybe at the time, or maybe all the consoles. But I remember there was one that came for Xbox, and it was a Sonic a Return, Shadow returned, and then there was a character named Silver, and he's a white hedgehog,
I've
and he
seen
has
pictures.
telekinetic powers. He can fly, levitate, move things,
Yeah.
and so the game really revolved around these characters, and that was the first time when there was emphasis on like they can all race and all that, and that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's been so many other spin-off games, and for me, it's odd because for a lot of games, I don't often care for spin-off games when it comes to certain characters like Sonic. The main games, the ones that's considered canon, if you want to say that, I don't,
Well,
those are the ones that has always, yeah. Go ahead, go ahead.
what is canon? Like I said, there's the difference between the 2D side scrollers that are about speed and clearing the stage, um,
Yeah,
versus the
yeah.
other ones that are more adventure. There's a lot more things to do, and even treasure
Yeah,
hunting for
yeah.
the emeralds. You know.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. But yeah, I don't. I guess there's some games that you can tell like there's been a lot more thought out with the story and the dialogue and the exchange and some type of development of Sonic, and so those games have always stood out to me. Like even now,
Yeah.
if I'm watching a game and it says, oh, this is Knuckles' game, and I don't know, it's like, yeah, I like Knuckles. He's a cool character, and I still remember when he first showed up in Sonic 3. Like I love how you can pretty much see that Eggman tricked Knuckles to give the impression that Sonic's the bad guy.
Yeah.
That was the whole idea. So Knuckles is like this, this echidna, and he
That's
has
yeah.
the role of protecting, yeah, protecting, but he's under the impression Sonic's the bad guy. And so it's really interesting to see how throughout the game he makes things inconvenient for you because he knows the island and Sonic's the one visiting the island, and Knuckles already knows the ins and out of this. So he shows up, makes things inconvenient, but it's not until later on he sees that Eggman is actually the villain.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, yeah, and it was something I really appreciated about that.
That's in the game.
That was in the game, yeah, and
Okay.
there's no like dialogue. It was just little things moving around, and
That's
I don't
interesting.
know. I think, yeah, yeah, it's really well done. They made sure that you could obviously see what was happening, but
It seems
yeah,
like
it's
that's what
really.
they're going for this movie, right?
I believe so. I believe
Yeah.
so. I didn't think they was going to introduce Knuckles so soon. I actually thought they would wait for the third one, but I guess it makes sense.
I don't know if Shadow's going to show up in this one, but the third one has to be Shadow, right?
Well, I'm already hearing that there's a setup for
Has to
another
be.
kid for another movie. Yeah, yeah. So
He's the
yeah,
edge lord I need.
he would be the next main big character. I'm gonna say. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's a lot of these little characters like Amy Rose and all these other little cute characters, but yeah, that would be the next big character. It would be Shadow the Hedgehog.
He's the ultimate life form, James. See, like people talk about debates and fights between superheroes. None of that matters when Shadow the Hedgehog is there. You know what I'm saying? It's canon. He is the ultimate life form. It's said multiple times in the Sonic canon, and there's just no dispute. People are just being silly when they're comparing things to Shadow.
One of my favorite scenes in any Sonic game is in Sonic Adventure 2. And I don't know if you would remember this.
James, I
Um,
remember everything about that game.
okay,
That
okay. Obviously, there's some type of, I don't know, device at the end of this long road in space somewhere.
Yep.
And you probably already know what I'm talking about. And Sonic shows up and he's ready to, run down the course so he can go and, I don't know, dismantle this thing or stop it or whatever. But, obviously, Shadow, learns that, Sonic is, and he's already encountered Sonic a few times. He's already used the Chaos Emerald's power and stuff
Chaos
like that.
Control. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
there. Yeah,
right. But I remember, Shadow, throughout the game, there were once or twice, he encountered Sonic and they fought and, Chaos Control and all this other stuff. But in this scene, it was almost like Shadow wanted to know, like what's motivating you to do this?
uh huh.
Like, why are you, I'm trying to remember the dialogue because it's been a while. I could probably find it on YouTube. But I remember Sonic and Shadow was walking as they're talking because
And
Shadow,
yeah, no, it's
before he gets into it, because he knows they're about to get into it. But he wants to know, why are you doing this? Like,
yeah.
why are you? What's motivating you? And I love like Sonic's dialogue, his exchange with him. And as they're
They just
talking,
speed up. Yeah, and
and,
they
and, and I just yeah, and I just love that scene. And Sonic just made it clear, like, this is where I stand. Like, this is what I do. This is and I just love how, man, just that whole battle scene just
turns into a boss fight. It's great.
yeah, yeah. But even beyond that, when they both, are needed to stop this thing from destroying whatever, and they're both like becoming, supersonic and
I was gonna say they
super,
turned Super Saiyan with all the Chaos
and I love how they
Emeralds.
kept changing. I was like, oh, I'm
The way that game finished,
telling you, man.
one of the
Makes me want
best
to just turn it on,
climaxes.
right? It makes me want to just pop that thing on right
I
now.
think I'm
Like,
gonna play after we finish talking. Legit,
yeah,
like
right?
it's such a good game. I really
Beautiful
want to show it to
experience.
Julie.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I just, wow. Wow.
No, the whole and here let's just explain the whole plot line here for a second. But Sonic is essentially being framed because Shadow was released by Eggman as the ultimate life form. Is like I guess his dad was working on it, right? That was his secret project, and so Sonic is being framed as doing all these bad things, and people are looking for a fast hedgehog, and then he's like, "You're just a fake," and he's like, "Faker, you're not even good enough to be my fake," you know. Um, and he's always like attacking him with the Chaos Emeralds and stuff, and Sonic is like, "That's how he's so fast. He's not fast. He's just using the Chaos Emerald, you know." Um, but yeah, Shadow has his own thing of all his own powers that make him the ultimate life form and super powerful and stuff. But it's awesome how at the end of the game, like in the game, there's two story modes, right? There's the hero side and the dark side, and
Yes.
you play missions
Yes.
as different characters in each, and then at the end, it's like the ending where they kind of combine and they fix everything. Um,
Hmm.
no, that game is like so awesome. Eggman like blows up the moon, and he's gonna like
Seriously, man, it's such a beautiful story. I just loved it. I was so surprised, like, man, they actually surpassed Sonic Adventure 1 because the way it worked for me is usually when a game is really good, I'm thinking there's no way they're beating this.
yeah,
There's no way
yeah,
and them to actually manage to,
top it.
you know, yeah, yeah. And then I just love how instead of, just running, Shadow has like these rocket skates or whatever it is,
Yeah, he's
he just
rollerblading down, and
yeah,
Sonic is
he
just
just
running
like
like,
after a while he's running, but then he starts sliding,
yep,
and I'm
yep.
like, oh man, that's awesome, man. Yeah, that was really good.
The music
That
is
was
so good in that one. Crush 40 killed it with the soundtrack. There, Live and Learn is still on my workout playlist.
really
Yeah, yeah. The song at the end too. I forget if it's the same or if it's a different one, but that's on my playlist too. And then the game from the game that came after was Shadow the Hedgehog, where the promo art is Shadow holding a Glock.
I remember that. I remember that.
Um, yeah, so there's a song from that intro that I have on there too. It's awesome. I love that stuff. And there's like
Yeah,
so many memes that go on about like with that song and then Sonic. It's like tied to him, and
dude,
I love it.
that's funny. Yeah, one of the phrases I used to love hearing Shadow say is, playtime is
Oh
over.
my, yeah, yeah, yeah. Disappear, and you spend the
Yeah,
rings
yeah.
to do the
Oh, I used
attack.
to love.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love his character. I love his background. I love his look, and I just thought it was so cool that
I
they really
loved
like expanded the world, with him.
it. Had a two-player mode, and me and Matt would always go at it. Right, the
Really?
grind of racing down the rails in the pyramid. You know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
you had your intros and let me show you my real power.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my god, I could talk about that game forever, man.
Right, right. That's one thing I really love is I love when I don't know why, but I love when these video game characters are a little arrogant.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they're like I'm holding back.
Hmm.
I'm holding back. One game I think is really good at that. And I don't know if you're as familiar with it. I'm trying to remember how we played it. Soul Calibur.
We
You know.
okay, we might have played it a little bit, but I did play Soul Calibur
Okay.
2 on the
Okay.
PS1
Okay. 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 Okay.
or
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So it came for um, Soul Edge, I believe, came for the PlayStation One, and then beyond that, it became Soul Calibur because I think there was some type of copyright issue with the first name, and but yeah, it was like every character, like once they would win, they always said something like super arrogant and prideful, like did you see my real power, or
Yeah.
did you feel that? That's real, true power. And
Yeah.
or like I really was holding back, or something. It's like okay,
Uh-huh.
but it's like everybody's like that. Everybody on that game is convinced they're the best. So it's hilarious, man. It's hilarious.
No, for sure. I love when characters take up that mantle, and it's just kind of part of that character, right? You see that all the time in like Marvel's Capcom 3, the different endings, right? The ending cards,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the intros too. Those are always good. With a bunch of different fighting games, they do that. It's awesome.
Hmm.
Um,
Love it.
no,
I
but
love it.
that Sonic game was so much of my childhood, man. They had
Yeah.
so much to do too. It wasn't even just the story. It was like they had little like Chow
Like,
gardens and stuff, and
yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember if that was in part two. Also, was it?
it was, yeah.
Because I know part one for sure. Okay, because part one it went like it became like a game in its own.
It
You know?
was. It was like one of those
Yeah.
games that you could just play all the time and a bunch of stuff to do.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You know what was funny is I don't know if you would know this, but when the first one came out, Sonic Adventure One, the Dreamcast had a very unique controller. It actually had some type of I don't know if like a memory card that actually had a screen.
Really?
So yeah, so you would be playing the game and you could actually, I might have to show you eventually, or maybe show you online eventually, but you can actually put it, this memory card with a screen in your controller and you can actually see the screen. So what you can essentially do is, and I know for a fact you can do this in Sonic Adventure One for Dreamcast. I'm not sure about the other ones, but if you wanted to take your Chow with you, you would basically download it into
Oh
your,
man.
little memory card, and yeah, and you can actually make sure you feed it on time and entertain it while you're on the go in this little
Like a
memory
little
card, and it had its
Tamagotchi?
own little, like controller and two buttons, and it was hilarious,
Yeah.
hilarious. Yeah, but it was such a good idea. It was such a good idea, you
Yeah,
know.
no, that's great. And then Pokemon did that a
Mm.
little bit after too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Pokemon dominated with that concept.
Yeah.
They dominated.
Do you remember the little like toy little video games that would Sonic video games that would come in like McDonald's Happy Meals?
I do remember that. I
Like
do.
Knuckles was playing soccer or something. So, like those were
I think so vaguely, but yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, those were awesome too.
I did.
There's
Yeah.
so much like nostalgia I have for Sonic and everything from those
Yeah.
games, and like I said, there is a disconnect because I haven't played those older ones, and I've been thinking of like maybe going back um, to try it out and see how it goes. And I think the newer Sonic games have kind of returned to some of that like 2D
Yeah.
fast-paced side-scrolling, but my love will always be for the 3D adventure. Like that, there's so much to do there. There was so many different avenues to go about it, and then it wasn't just a speed course, but it was like, well, first, like you said, the soundtracks were great also, but there was hunting for the Chaos Emeralds. That was always
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And then the battles, right? You could get in like a
Yeah.
mech with Eggman or Tails, and then the Chows and I forget who else, but like you could fight each other like that with different abilities and powers. So much of that game was awesome, and but some of my favorite stuff, like I said, is the music, not just the soundtrack. Because there is some like I don't know if you ever drowned in that game, but if you want to have a heart attack, look up Sonic drowning music.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember that. I remember that because there are a lot of times I was panicking as a child, and I'm like, you know,
Yeah,
oh no,
there is no
yeah,
reason
really,
for you to put that much stress on like a 6-year-old.
yeah. Yeah. It was bad. It was bad.
One of my
It was
favorites, though, besides the main intro that I still have on my workout playlist, is the Pumpkin Hill rap. I don't know if you remember that one, where the Knuckles is going to Pumpkin Hill, that whole stage where he's looking for the different Chaos Emeralds, and
bad.
there's like a rap song that's playing about it.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, I'll send you the link, James. It's quality.
I want to hear these songs because it's been a while for me.
I think it's worth
Oh,
a
that's
playthrough, James. I think, yeah, yeah, maybe return to some roots.
that's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, it's what's really funny is I used to always kind of get on my myself about the fact that as a younger man I never really was into music.
Yeah,
And yeah, yeah, and I just feel like most people I know, like if you ask the average person, oh, what's your top 10 songs, top 5 songs, most people can just go down the list, even if it's like a different genre or whatever. And for me, like it would take me a moment to really kind of think about that because my mind has never really, I was never into music like that. But then I
Yeah.
realized that I was into music, but it was a lot of video game music.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of video game music for me, you know. So even Street Fighter and Marvel versus Capcom and all
Yeah.
these, yeah, yeah. If you like say, oh, name the, do this character's, song, like I can hum it. I can hum it,
Yep.
and
Their theme.
there's probably like hundreds of songs from different video games just sitting in my head because, it's just, I don't know, theme songs, all this stuff.
Because you
And
played it so
I
much, it's just there, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I realized that, yeah, I enjoy music. It's just different type of music.
There is a bunch of songs that if I just hear them, I get an emotion, right? I'll
Oh,
either feel calmness and serenity, or I'll feel like, I guess, a
yeah,
fight's coming, right? Or I'll think
yeah,
of the
yeah,
specific motives of the character, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's so true. Me too. Me too.
yeah, and a lot of it is like nostalgia for that stuff that's like really old. But some people have different ways of like writing papers, or when they got to do a monotonous task, right? They do whatever. I've listened to a bunch of different nostalgic video game soundtracks. They keep me productive. I
Interesting.
recently I've been doing Elden Rings and the Souls series because it's like grand gothic choir like boss fight music.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So there's that,
That's
but then
nice.
there's also like serenity because a big part of those games is the landscapes and like the beautiful scenery, right? Like we said, looking at something that's far away and being able to go there, right? So there is very like nice, serene music. The track Majula from the Dark Souls 2 soundtrack is like so like just like it's soft and like soothing, so I can always like calm down and
It brings you
brings
to
you to that
something.
place, brings you
Huh?
the feeling of that, a
That's
bunch of
so
stuff from
funny.
the
That's so
Souls
funny.
series does that, but not even just that, but I don't know if you played Super Mario 64 or Donkey Kong 64.
Marvel 64, I'm very familiar with.
You said Marvel 64? Mario,
Mario
yeah,
64,
Mario. Okay, yeah.
I'm
So,
very familiar. I feel like the
um,
whole world in that game at one point.
right? Yeah, no, I loved that
Yeah.
game. That was another one of the first
Mm.
3D games that I played. That was,
Excellent.
uh,
Yeah, it was breaking the boundaries.
but the deep blue water theme, or the dry bay, or something the water level, right? That one specifically I can think of all the time and remember, and yeah, so a bunch of that music is really soothing and great. And then with the Donkey Kong one, it's just like upbeat and like jungle
Oh
japes and
yeah.
all that. um and I was so hyped when Smash brought King K. Rool because I played 64 and that's how I knew him, that character.
Oh,
um
that's cool.
yeah, yeah. And then even
Nice.
I guess the one I go to the most is because it's my favorite game ever, StarCraft. Do you know anything about it?
StarCraft? No, I'm
It's
trying to
just a
remember.
computer game that came out in '97, or
I
'98.
probably know it if I see like pictures.
Yeah,
Like I'll probably know by.
but it's a real-time strategy, right? So already it's a top-down where you're building a base, an army, and going and attacking people. So in that scenario, the music is it's really good, but it's also like meant to kind of get your productive juices going, right? So it's the
Nice.
perfect like for me to knock out some
Really?
papers and stuff. Yeah, I love listening to that
Oh,
stuff.
nice. Nice. Yeah, that's so funny because I've always felt like that regarding fighting games when it comes to their, theme songs, and especially with games like Street Fighter and even games, companies that made games that are sort of like use that foundation of what Street Fighter is, like, Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting.
Yeah,
It could be Soul Calibur, but what I enjoyed about those games is I almost felt like they were trying to give you a little taste of everyone's culture and their personalities in these theme songs.
yeah,
So like for example, with Street Fighter, you would see like I don't know, like when you're fighting at Guile's level, and there's it's you see his military friends in the background rooting for him and stuff
yeah.
like that,
The
and there's
stage
jets
design and
and it's yeah, yeah, and you see like you just see like this is America, and we're strong, and like it gives you that song like the trumpets, and but then also when you I don't know, you may look at somebody like gosh, Ryu, and you get the sense that he's like this lone fighter with his song. He's by himself. He's out somewhere,
yeah,
sometimes in the wilderness or in some type of dojo or something. But you can see by the environment he's by himself. He's not around people. And so it's always been like something that really fit him perfectly. It's his song. And yeah, yeah, and then like when Capcom started creating these versus games, they had to kind of make a lot of these songs that may have used to have been more laid back. They had to speed them up because the versus games are so you know so like upbeat.
Yeah.
So even like speeding up Ryu's song and getting more clever with certain songs, it was really nice to experience that. But I've always felt like I appreciated that with developers because they would almost give you a piece of that person's culture. If they were from France, they would give you some type of music that had like a French influence, or
Hmm.
Japanese and Japanese influence and so on, German. It would be classical music, So it was always something like that
Oh, I love
I appreciated.
the stage design of different fighting games and stuff, and even video games where they take the time to like, this is the character, right? This is the environment they were from. This is kind of it gets you that feeling of what it's supposed to be with the music and the setting or stage, right? So that's always well done, typically. Yeah, but I'm excited to see that Sonic 2 movie. Well,
Yeah,
both of them, I guess.
oh yeah, I know, right? Yeah, yeah. Like I said, man, I just thought it was so entertaining the first one, so I'm pretty sure this one's going to be you know, exciting. I did notice that doesn't seem like it's as long as most movies.
Really?
Like the average movie, I'm going to say, usually about an hour 30 minutes or so. And then with trailers, it's usually maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes tagged onto it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought I seen it said like an hour and 20 something minutes. So yeah, so I was like, okay, well,
Short and sweet
straight to
is
the point
good.
kind of.
I don't know if you need a
Yeah.
3 hour Sonic movie, right?
I feel like Marvel for a while has been stretching a lot of the movies on average like 2 hours
Two, yeah.
plus. Yeah, and I didn't realize that. I thought it was only the Avengers, but it's like a lot of the regular films are just they're 2 hours plus. Period. And even Doctor Strange is gonna be stretching in a little bit,
Well,
not more
that one
than.
looks like it's gonna need it, but
Oh yeah, 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 exactly,
lots to
exactly.
unpack there.
But I just feel like I don't know. I think to some extent I'm getting accustomed to longer films, and it's rare because like even at home I can't sit down and watch a 2 3 hour film. Like I have to like break it in pieces. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's a different experience when you go to the theater, obviously.
it is, and I think it's easier to like watch a longer film in the theater. Typically, unless
Yeah,
if you take care of your stuff, you don't gotta use the restroom or nothing, right? You don't buy a bunch of
definitely.
popcorn and no drink. It's typically easier to sit there the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. I've had to learn that the hard way over the years.
Yeah, but no, I definitely feel you on the movie length. Like for instance, this week we watched the movie called Nightmare Alley. I don't know if you heard about it. It came out in December. Guillermo del Toro film.
Oh, you know what? I've been wanting to see that. I really like
Yeah.
like his stuff. I've been hesitant to.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll do.
Did you enjoy it? Was it okay?
No, I enjoyed it. It was I'll do like a non spoiler thing. It's got a bunch of great actors, which is also cool to see.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've seen that. I've seen that.
yeah, so a bunch of talent there, and it was an interesting concept. I think it was a good movie. It was like 2 hours, around 2 hour 30. I think maybe it was a little on the longer side. The way the story ended up, it wasn't. I'll say this: I didn't blow my mind or anything, which might be
Okay.
my own fault. I might have come with too high of expectations because of the cast and the director. I
Oh
I
yeah,
love like Del Toro's stuff, and so,
yeah.
but it was still like really, it was really, it was still really good. Just
Mm,
wasn't mind blowing or anything, right?
mm,
So I might have set my
mm.
expectations too high, but it was a good story. But as far as
Okay.
the length, that one I felt maybe could have not taken 2 hours and 30 minutes, right? And
Mm.
then also coming off of Batman, which is three, you know.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I'm just accustomed to it now. The last times I've been, and then like the main movie I seen before that probably was Spider-Man, and that was what 3 hours or
Probably
so.
three, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting a condition to it or,
I'll say that I
but I just don't.
enjoyed Spider-Man's 3 hours more than Batman's 3 hours, and that might
Yeah,
be because of the setting and everything they had going, but
take that. Yeah, I can take that. Yeah.
the yeah. So with the Sonic one, it's good that it's like not going to be too super long.
Yeah, yeah. Straight to the point, kind of.
I think we'll enjoy that, but I am kind of conflicted because I still haven't seen Morbius, and I just keep hearing not the best stuff, and then
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So as far as like us talking about it or whatever, I think I am gonna try and see 1 and 2 today, and probably maybe before Morbius. Maybe I'll wait. It sucks because I was excited for it a lot, and I guess
Okay.
I should probably still give it the chance in the theaters to see it. But it's just it is a
I,
project to go to the theater. We got a kid now and everything, and this isn't something where Caitlin's with us. She can just watch her. She wanted to see the movie too because it had Jared Leto. So, um, we'd have to do a whole thing for it. And I know it's not 3 hours, so it won't be as tough. But
oh yeah, yeah,
would you? Is it
yeah.
still? It's still worth a watch though in theaters? You think?
Well, I'll put it this way. I would almost, I would almost push for you to see the two Sonic movies. I'll put it that way. I'll put it that way. I
Okay.
still think that eventually you should get to it,
Yeah.
and I will say you don't necessarily have to see it in theaters. I think you should still see it, but it's not one of those things where it's like Spider Man or Doctor Strange, where it's like, oh, if I don't get to see this, I'm gonna be left out. And like there are certain movies I would emphasize that you have to have the theater experience. The Batman, those are but I would say with Morbius, it depends on your. Because for me, like I'm one of those guys where if it's superhero related to anything, I'm gonna go see it regardless.
Okay.
Regardless of critics, and but I also can see how the movie's mood is very different than what we normally see. It's very different, and I've had some people kind of give me, ask me my opinion about it, and I kind of feel like it's doing its own thing. So if you're trying to say, okay, let me compare it to something else, yeah, it's not gonna be as radiant when you do that. But
Yeah.
if you say, okay, it's its own thing, then it's like, okay, now it's like, okay, now I get it. It's not trying to copy anybody else. It's doing something completely different.
Yeah.
But I think that Marvel, for example, and I'm sure you would agree, and everyone listening would agree, Marvel has a very great system when it comes to adding just enough romance
Cookie
in their
cutter.
films,
It's a
great
formula.
story. Oh yeah, yeah, and they got it. The humor, they have it. So this movie doesn't use that. I'll put it that way. They don't use that.
So this is how you
It's
make a
doing
good
its own thing.
film. This film doesn't do that. Oh man, that's
It's its
funny.
own thing,
Yeah,
Yeah, but I
yeah.
feel like I appreciated it. But I can see also why it wouldn't be as people
Well,
wouldn't respond
that's
as
what's interesting is that like Marvel discovered this perfect formula, and even though the results are displayed with every movie they make, it seems so
I'm
hard to
telling
copy for
you.
other studios. You know?
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I think I was looking at the fact that Doctor Strange is just it's like going to be like releasing in like a month, and already like there's so many tickets sold out. Like I think I seen that it made just as much as the Batman possibly made in like I don't know how many weeks just from the reservations, just from the reservation. Yeah, so it's almost like yeah, people know like Marvel knows their thing, and they know what we like, and
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, yeah, and in all honesty, already, Spider-Man really blew my mind already with everything that the other Spider-Mans that came. So I know they're going to double down on that in this next film. I don't even know who we're going to expect. I mean, even just the fact that I seen Patrick Stewart,
Oh yeah,
from the
yeah.
old, I'm just like, okay, okay. So you just have to put on your seatbelt and know your mind's about to be blown. So with that anticipation, yeah, it's kind of like I don't know. And then those of us who've seen WandaVision, it's nice to get a continuation of what's happening with Wanda, and so yeah, with all of that. But yeah, with Morbius, I don't, there's not much of that. It's kind of like
Well,
this
here's my
character.
thing. Oh, go.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
So it's all the Doctor Strange stuff is going to be great, and that whole multiversal thing brings in all these other characters, and they've shown that they're willing to touch the legacy stuff. Right? They touched Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, even Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. And that's a different thing in and of itself because it's a different company of Sony. So what I want from Morbius, and I am genuinely interested to learn more about the character. So if it is more of an origin story, if I do get that from it, I'm still probably interested to see it. It is a cool enough
Sure.
character, vampire type thing. I'm about
Oh,
that.
absolutely. Oh, definitely. Yeah, his abilities are.
But my main concern, and I've talked to you about this, how does
Uh-oh.
this relate to Blade and Ghost Rider and my boys and Venom and all? Like That's what I'm waiting for
That's
here.
right.
So
That's
if I
right. That's
get,
right.
and it's the same. I wouldn't say it's as bad as the Justice League movie because with that I had the preconception of like if a Green Lantern is not shown or referenced at all, this is not a valid movie, and I will revolt it and rebuke it, and it will have like God when you are
You're gonna see
lukewarm,
this
I will spit
better.
you out.
Yeah.
you, you know, so that's how I felt about Justice League. And for this one, my conditions, it's not as strict because I think I'm interested in the character and learning that origin story. So I give it that already. But my condition is it
Okay.
must have something that shows me some sign that I'm gonna get what I want.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Oh
So I don't know if
man.
it's spoilers to give me any of that, or I guess just give me a like. Will I get? How much do you think, with that in mind, of my preconceptions, would I enjoy that movie?
I yeah. It's funny because I remember. I'll just say this: when I was going to see the first Doctor Strange, or even um what is it, Chris Pratt's character
Thor.
in the team,
No, Chris Pratt is
Star Lord,
yes,
and what's the
Star
team?
Lord. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay, so when I seen like Doctor Strange one and the first Guardians of the Galaxy, I didn't really care that much for these characters. But I will say, after both those films, I cared about them. I cared about who
Yeah.
Doctor Strange was moving forward because the film just did a very good job with his origin and everything, and same thing with um, Star Lord and his character with the Guardians. They did a very good job. I feel like with Morbius, I'm not sure at a universal level that that's the effect that everyone is going to get
Hmm.
from his movie. I think some people are going to go in and say, okay, well, I'm coming in expecting Venom, Spider Man, all this kind of energy, and it's like it's a completely different concept. So it's very, and it's odd because it's almost like going into like the supernatural stuff. So it's just very different. It has a very different tone. So I thought that was very interesting. And I personally I appreciated the film, but I just feel like for a lot of us, we are accustomed to a certain standard. I'm gonna
Standard.
say.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I'm trying to clean this up a little bit, but I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not made for everyone. It's not gonna resonate with everyone.
Yeah.
You know.
I still feel like from that, I'd see it. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
You
not
should.
one for the common. I don't see these movies because they're popular. I don't see these movies because the formula. I see them because I care about the characters and I know about the characters, or I want to know more about a character. Right.
Okay, okay.
So like we talked about with the
That's part
Marvel
of the reason.
movies, their success has brought along the masses that just kind of want an entertaining film,
Yeah.
and which
Oh
you're
yeah.
entitled to. You pay your money, you should be entertained. Um,
Agreed.
there
Agreed.
are very
Agreed.
select few films in my life where I legitimately wish I did not waste the hour or so amount of time of my life to watch the film. The Fantastic Four movie, most recently, being one of them. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. That's the most recent one
Most
from
recent
Fox, right?
Fantastic Four movie.
Okay. I did see it. I did actually go in theaters to see it.
I'm sorry.
Um,
I'm
it, I'll put it this way. I'll put it this way. I think that we could have had something very interesting if they would have taken a different approach.
I agree.
Um,
That's why I wanted to
yeah,
watch it.
yeah, yeah. In fact, I was hoping, and at the time, Fox still had the rights to like the X-Men related stuff and Fantastic Four. So I was expecting something to happen from that, and the X-Men eventually intermingling with them, and But yeah, I thought it was very interesting. Human Torch is black. You have a different change. With the story and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just yeah, I just felt like I don't know. And one thing I do want to say is that I think my interpretation of movies is a little bit different than your typical moviegoer because I do go in not thinking of movies as bad or good. I actually see them more as they're leaning more towards this or more towards that or. And I do think that for example, Morbius. I don't know who the director is, but I believe that they did. The director did accomplish their goal. You
Okay.
know, if I'll put it that way. But but I think that we all have different interpretations of what we expect from a film, and I think Marvel has, of course, found that formula where it's kind of at a universal level. Like, I
No
mean, you
matter
don't
the
even have to speak
director,
English. Yeah,
follow
even if
this
you're not speaking
formula.
English, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy any of these films. If you just sit there and yeah, you don't speak a lick of English, you're still going to enjoy them because they found something, and they stick with it. They do it very well. They balance everything perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just thinking like, I don't know. It's interesting because some of the actors admit that Marvel does allow them sometimes to come up with their own ideas, and like even with Robert Downey Jr., like I found out later on that the idea was for him to remain, no one was going to know his identity as Iron Man, and then Robert Downey Jr., he just decided
Yeah.
just in one of the takes to admit he's Iron Man, and then the press and everyone who's actors acting as a press responded accordingly, and then they ended the movie that way. It's like,
Yep.
oh snap, whoa, whoa, So it's just so I appreciate that, but yeah, I definitely check out Morbius, but I will say you don't necessarily have to rush to it.
Okay.
I'll put it.
Okay, I'll catch it
I'll put it.
eventually. I think I will
Yeah,
try and go. Maybe I'll go by myself or with a friend or something to go see it.
okay.
Because I do want to talk about it and I do want to get to know that character, but it brings to light the conversation of like the whole new age of superhero movies with that formula, right? Whereas like
Oh,
the old age without it was more just wild, wild west. You never knew what you were going to get. The movie was either going to
yeah,
be super great and on point with the
yeah,
character
yeah,
representation and sometimes even a
yeah,
great film of its own, or it was going to
yeah,
be just a botch, and,
yeah,
and or sometimes a very middling, mediocre thing. It's there for the nerds, right?
yeah.
The nerds appreciate it. No one else does, Um,
True.
I think it took some of those movies to break that boundary and be entertaining to more than just the nerd that is going to see it anyway. And that's what made it so popular and all these other things. But we also
Mm.
watched a couple nights back Ghost Rider, the first, that first one, the first
Uh,
film with
Nicholas
Nick Cage,
Cage.
yeah.
Okay,
So we
okay.
saw that again. One of my favorite films. Love that
Actually,
movie.
yeah, I enjoyed that one. That first one.
It's
Yeah, I
good.
enjoyed that one.
And that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about. If like it was before that time, but it was still a really
yeah.
good representation of the character. Was a really good
Agreed.
like entertaining film, and it was a little wonky sometimes, but it was awesome.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, I agreed. I actually feel like it was packed with so much. Like
Yeah,
there could have been so much more if they wanted to expand on
for
it. Yeah,
sure. I think they
yeah,
did
that
good,
first
like
one.
not going too crazy with it. But
Yeah, yeah,
and I don't mean to discredit the movie at all. Like I love this movie and I love that the whole thing exists. But honestly, you didn't even need any of it. You could just release the 30-second clip of Ghost Rider and the old Ghost Rider riding together at the end to the sunset. Like that's my screensaver
oh,
right now.
that
No
was nice.
kidding.
That was nice. That was nice. Yeah, that was
um,
nice. Yeah,
for
that was
sure.
nice.
Like that whole they're just riding down and they look badass and that's what it's all about. I was just like as a kid I was like, oh.
I just remember really enjoying that film.
It's a
I
great
just feel like
film.
it was right. There was so much packed into it. It was so much just
Yeah.
from just from the beginning. It was just so well done. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, there is rumors that Nicholas Cage is going to make an appearance in Doctor Strange. There's
Oh, you're
rumors.
lying. You're lying. Don't tell me
Uh,
that, James. Don't
yeah, yeah, yeah,
don't tell
yeah.
me that, James.
There's rumors of Hugh Jackman possibly, but also the guy who played Harry Potter possibly playing Wolverine. I don't know if that's yeah.
I'm
The
sorry.
only Daniel
Daniel
what
Radcliffe?
Radcliffe, yeah. The only thing I do think is interesting is he does have the right height for the actual Wolverine. He
Really?
actually he does. He
Okay.
does. Because Hugh Jackman's way off.
Yeah, no,
Way off when it
yeah.
yeah.
So that
Yeah.
I,
But
I could see it then if Daniel Radcliffe does have the height, but he'd have to get, pretty yoked. He'd have to be some condensed mass.
well yeah. But I mean at this point, yeah, I have no idea what to expect. Hugh Jackman did when he retired and he did the Logan movie. One of the things he used to always say, even prior to that, is that the only way he would want to return to Wolverine is if, of course, the X-Men joined the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Then he
Yeah.
would probably, And so I think it's interesting how we're pretty much at that point now. We're at that point now. So if I'm pretty sure we would all gladly welcome him back.
Yeah, it's
So
going to be really tough. He's one of those characters that is Wolverine.
I'm telling you,
It's going to be
and
very
that's the
tough
thing
to
that gets
see
me is
to
just
split that up.
well, yeah, yeah, and I just feel like the only thing I don't like is he has been doing this for 20 years, so he's older now and it's different. So
More than welcome
that's the
to
only
quit
thing
the
that
role. He's given us more than enough. We're gluttons at this point for his Wolverine.
yeah, yeah, 20 years. Yeah, I mean he's already broken like records and for playing the a character for the longest. I think him and Patrick Stewart. So I'm just like, oh, I think Tobey Maguire now officially. Yeah, he actually.
Because he reprised the role.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. But yeah, no, I just thought it was just so. So I mean, I have no idea what to even expect, but I'm expecting a crazy movie with, all these characters that I didn't anticipate, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if all the X-Men showed up from all the movies, and just yeah, this is just gonna be a wild ride. I just know it for sure. I know it.
Yeah, so that's why we're all
No.
excited for that one. But as far as it relates to Morbius, that's my whole point. Like we know what to expect from Multiverse of Madness. That thing's gonna be crazy. We are getting that right, and not that Morbius has to
Yeah,
be that, but he has
yeah.
in the trailer made reference to the Spider-Man thing, and he made reference to Venom. So it's like Venom's kind of in the shackles of Sony, but I'm waiting. It's kind of the same thing I feel about Shadow, how I feel about Venom.
Oh, really?
Just like an edge lord that I just want to be in the game or in the movie with the main character. Because it's their
Oh, that's
rival, their
fascinating.
antithesis almost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. And I don't want to give anything away in regards to Morbius, but it's a very different, interesting take on that. So after you see it, I'd love to, discuss the possibilities with you in that direction and stuff like that. But it is very clear that you know, Morbius is a Sony thing,
Yeah.
and Sony for a while has been wanting to actually do their whole version of a Marvel's cinematic like Spider-Man universe, So for a while they've been wanting to do the Sinister Six. That's
Yeah.
been in talk for a while, and things didn't really work out with some of the past films. So I feel like right now they're building something. So maybe in the future they don't have to rely on Marvel necessarily. I don't know, but
It's
they're
just
doing something.
tough because, like, at least with the Sinister Six, it's like not every villain is a character on its own. That you try to
True.
develop them, like, but they're introduced through these heroes' stories.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
you can get a little bit more into them as the line goes down, but not all of them can hold up they're interesting enough to hold up their own movie. Venom
I agree.
he is an anti-hero. He does the good things
Mm.
sometimes, and he has that ability to do that. But like, I don't know, like Vulture, like Rhino, or like some of the other characters, Scorpion. Like, how many of
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
guys are going to be able to, like, yeah, they have interesting stories for sure. The characters have been written for what, 50, 40 years now.
Yeah.
But like your own whole movie, like, and I don't know
Yeah.
where
I was
Morbius lands on that. Is he an anti-hero?
I consider him an anti-hero. I was talking to somebody about that, and they said, "Well, no, that's not entirely true." I was like, "Well, I know he started out as a villain in the comics, and then he kind of developed into, like someone having a conscience to some extent." And so,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So he's a very interesting character because, I mean, of course, you see this conflict with characters that are supposed to be, vampires, and it's like, do you drink blood or not? So you kind of you see that with a lot of these kind of films. So I think it's a very interesting take on that kind of role because when you have a conscience or when you're trying to do what's good, it's like, okay, what do you do? Because like that's your so that's really something I think even like Twilight films had to explore that. I think one of the main characters, Edward, like he substituted human blood for like hunting animal blood or something like that, or yeah. So it's just a very interesting take. So but yeah, but I agree with you. I was even thinking about Spider-Man, the last Spider-Man movie, how you can see certain villains really dominated with their presence. You've seen Electro, you've seen Doctor Octopus, you've seen the Green Goblin. Like they really made themselves. And then when it came to like the Sandman or when it came to Lizard, it's like they're in the background.
Yeah, they kind of like didn't give as much time to them, right? Because, well, with first of all, with that 3 hour runtime, you only have so much time to like go into stuff. But
True.
And I
True.
think Jamie Foxx was more. I think the only reason they got him to do it because he wasn't happy with how Amazing Spider-Man 2 went and how they did Electro, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah. He really didn't care for the blue face and all
Yeah,
that
the
stuff,
treatment
and
of the character.
he kept yeah he kept bringing that up with a lot of the interviews. Like he had a problem with them. I'm like, you were in Spider Man. Like so what? You're blue. You know? You were
that's
in Spider Man.
that's funny.
You were in Spider. You know. Yeah, and now I mean at this point, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're gonna bring him back, man.
I
You know,
don't know.
with
I
so much.
get the whole point of being humble and everything, but I think for the sake of the character just being better, right? This Electro we got now is better than the one. I mean, I can't say it because I didn't see the old one, but I assume.
You didn't.
No, no, no. I saw the first one because my little sister liked Andrew Garfield and wanted to see it, and it was okay. But I never thought the Amazing Spider-Man. I never thought Toby. I thought he was too cool for school. You know?
I would agree. I would agree. It's funny because when you watch all three of these Spider-Man films, you really see how different they really
Oh
are.
yeah.
You know, like the characters Peter, we think of this nerd, but yeah, he's reasonably handsome, but and you see like different aspects of this character with these. I feel like they did a very good job with their representations of a different version. And yeah, Toby to me like I really loved how he had that I don't know, he had that presence of just being like easily overlooked. And to me, I think of Peter Parker in that way. Like he's overlooked, like he's not the kind of person that you notice. And I think Toby did a very good job in his three films with that version of Peter. But yeah, I would agree. Andrew Garfield was way too cool. And I'm talking about not even Spider Man. Like this is just Peter. He was just too cool, man. The skateboard and yeah,
Yeah.
part two made him even more cooler, man. To be honest with you, part two just made him way cooler.
And then
You
my buddy who liked it was saying, "Yo, but he's different. He's the Amazing Spider-Man." And it's like, okay, all right, whatever you say. Um, you know, I think they each have their own distinct roles, and that's the thing. And even in the movie, there, Toby was like, "I want you to say it. You're amazing." Like that was
yeah,
such a
yeah,
funny joke. Um,
yeah. I
but
really love that scene. Yeah, that was
yeah,
a good scene.
that was what was really cool about that new Spider-Man was them all vibing together, right, and seeing their
Hmm.
different takes on the character, like interacting
Oh
with each
yeah,
other.
oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and I don't know if you've seen Into the Spider-Verse, that animated one.
Yes, I own that one, the first one.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
waiting for the second.
Second one looks like it's gonna be good. That movie was like one of my favorite Spider-Man.
Most people enjoyed that. Even people who didn't care for Spider-Man enjoyed that one.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
did
that one.
another fantastic job of like representing different
Agreed.
Spider-Mans.
Agreed. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people trying to push Sony to give us a live action Miles Morales,
I
and
was
at
gonna,
least meet Peter Parker. Yeah,
I thought Miles might have shown up in this one, and
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, yeah.
that would have been cool.
Like
But
yeah, I'm pretty sure we're gonna get something. I'm pretty sure.
what I like about their three different takes on Spider-Man was like Toby, like you said, is like the nerd, kind of personified, and he deals with a lot of the struggles of what Spider-Man is meant to be like dealing with. And so I think they did a lot of like true, genuine work on that character then. And to be fair, that's like one of their most like that's when it started, right? The popular Spider-Man movies. So that's good, like the original origin story.
Mm.
But and then like we said about Toby, I didn't see both of them, so I can't say, but just a little too cool for school for me. I did appreciate his take a lot more with his character arc after what happened, and then the what happened in the new movie, how that whole transformed his view. I appreciated that a lot, but
Yeah.
I do really love the new actor's name. What?
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland. Yeah, I love Tom
Yeah,
Holland's
very
take.
good fit. Very good fit.
Absolutely, for like the actual like being a kid, being a teenager, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was, I want to say, my favorite for a little while because of, I love like he was so true to the actual Peter Parker ness of
Agreed.
being
Agreed.
just a kid.
Yeah.
Like so
Yeah.
many times it's like referenced that he's just a kid in high school and that like and the like power these adults have over him or not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love seeing that different take on Spider-Man, but it was pointed out to me more recently, and I thought about it, and it's true that like he didn't really go through much adversity, much hardship. He had everything handed to him.
Yeah, I thought about that too until the movie.
Yep.
I was like, oh snap!
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Like he's getting on with his girl. You know, he doesn't have to have a job or anything. He's living with his Aunt May, and like rent's good, and he doesn't have to worry about any of that. You know.
There was no Daily Bugle,
Yep.
Jameson. Like he wasn't. Yeah, that's right.
He wasn't dealing
That's
with
so
that
interesting.
stuff. And he's given
Yeah.
like he knows Iron Man. He's given like a high tech suit. Doesn't have to do it. You know.
Yeah, I didn't think about that stuff until the movie, but wow, because yeah, the other characters like I just remember them, struggling, to pay rent and there was financial bills and issues and that was something that was always like a Spider-Man issue. That's what made him always very
Relatable.
relatable in the
Yeah.
comics. Yeah, that he wasn't like Bruce Wayne where you go in the like you have all this extra time and you're accomplished and you inherit all this money. Like he was like a kid, he was still trying to figure out himself, and then he has to be Spider-Man, and yeah, and then it's like taking pictures of himself and giving it to his job so he can pay the rent and pay, so it was always something that I feel like with the other two Spider-Mans, you I think to some extent you appreciate that. You appreciate that because you see that in both those films, and I would encourage you to check out the Amazing Spider-Man, both of them. You said you seen the first one or not?
Yeah, I saw the first one.
Okay, okay. But yeah, I mean, even just to, having it in the background as you're hanging out with friends one day, I don't know.
Yeah.
Definitely familiarize yourself with it. I think it's worth just checking out. Just
Yeah,
familiarize
I
yourself.
think we will. We talked about wanting to watch, we just haven't got around to it. But
Okay.
even Tom Holland's Spider-Man at the end, how he's left, right? And I think I heard something about how he might not come back, and it's every actor's right, so you don't gotta commit your life to the role. But it seems kind
Yeah.
of cruddy, to like leave it like that right when he's getting to like a part when it's like I know it's like a nice closing part because everyone I guess doesn't know him anymore, but it's like what we need, what we want from the other Spider-Man. He is in his own apartment. That's crappy. He is in his own suit now. Like.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where it goes from here, but who knows if he'll continue to play the character.
Yeah. I will say this. I will say this. Tom Holland, obviously, since Civil War, he's been very committed to this role, and you're right. He's a great interpretation of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, in my opinion. And he just brings something that we all need to see, and it's so interesting how he's grown just as an actor, but also just as Spider-Man. And I feel like yeah, he's perfect for this role. But at the same time, I do realize that Marvel slash Disney has some very strict contracts when it comes to commitment. You know, and one of the things he's shared, and I don't know if he slipped up by saying it, but one of the after like they finished filming the movie, I think he went out snowboarding and he like either broke his nose or he hit his nose, and the first thing he did was popped on the the phone to contact Zendaya, and tell her like, oh look, like I hurt myself, and for him like it was something enjoyable because he hasn't been able to participate in risky things like it's a part of his contract. He's
Yeah.
not allowed to do those things, And so I just thought to myself how restricting this must be for some of the actors. And I even noticed for a lot of these actors, a lot of them they once they are a part of Marvel, it's almost like they're not allowed to play any like rough roles in anything else.
Really?
I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but it's almost like I don't know. Every single person once they start doing the Marvel thing, every role they get, they're never like, even if they were bad guys or something in other films before, it's like moving forward, they're just not. So I don't know. I don't know what the restrictions are. I don't know if, and there's certain stipulations that come with certain contracts. I mean, I know like Apple, for example, I don't know if you know this, but in movies, bad guys are not allowed to have iPhones. I don't know if you know.
You're joking.
They're not.
That's not a
Yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah. They're not allowed to. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's something you can look up. It's crazy because
That's
they
real?
don't want that. They don't want that. Um, I guess they don't want that.
Only the hero uses iPhones.
Well, I mean, it's not like here, but villains are not allowed to have their stuff because they don't want. I don't know. It's odd. It's an odd
They don't want the negative
stipulation.
perception. Yeah, I
Okay,
understand
okay,
that
yeah,
from a business
yeah,
perspective.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't
First I
believe.
thought was like,
Yeah.
who cares? But yeah, but yeah, it's very interesting. It's very
I mean,
interesting. But
literally, you can get most of your movie paid for if you show the U.S. Army, U.S. government, like military, in a positive light. You know?
yeah, oh yeah,
That's how
yeah,
half the
yeah.
Transformers were funded. That's how, the new Monster Hunter movie was funded. It's like if you show a
Oh,
positive
interesting.
light on the US, like,
No, I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, they'll
I did
pay
not
for
know
most of the
that.
movie because it's a positive branding of, and
Interesting.
kids see those
That makes
movies, Yeah, yeah.
interesting. That makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I was just gonna get to the fact that I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Holland was done with the role. You know, he I know for a fact he has shared. He is interested in living his life. He is interested in having a family. He is interested in you know um and maybe possibly participating in the privilege you have of having your own family and
Yeah.
and actually commit time to being with him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he either it's a while before he returns or he doesn't return at all. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, I just feel like it's been I don't know how many years since Civil War, but he's been pretty consistent with his films. Like 3 films, he's been two Avenger films, right? There's Civil War. Like that's a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
A short amount of time, short amount of time, and then like all these press releases, and everyone just goes crazy over him.
Yeah, we
He's
don't
like one.
think about like it's like the movie, but it's also like the months of worldwide press before the film. Especially how big
Yeah.
these films are, like
Oh, I know. And every time they come out, like I'm always on YouTube, so I'm looking at them going to, Japan and talking to people in the interviews. And there's Comic Con, and there's this, and there's this, and they're going to Switzerland, and and Germany, and I'm just like, goodness gracious, how does somebody, it's touring around the world just for this one film, and then after 2 years of knocking out probably another one, I don't know, you do it all over again.
yeah.
You know, yeah, yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if he either takes a nice long break or he steps away. But I know Sony's definitely going to want him.
But
But I
what
feel like
about the money, James? What about the money? Forgetting about the
I don't know.
cheddar.
Tells me he's gonna be doing very well for himself, even if I mean, I'm pretty sure he's going to be an actor, but I don't know if he
Yeah.
would want to return as Spider-Man because I'm pretty sure it's a lot. It's a lot. I
Oh,
mean,
I'm
I
sure.
want him to return, but
Yeah, yeah,
I also
same. I think
want,
he does well.
yeah, yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if he said, "Oh, I think I'm going to step away from this." You know, there's other opportunities. Maybe even the Uncharted. I don't know. That might
Yeah, no, that might
do
take
something.
off a couple films. Everything has to
There
be a
you
trilogy nowadays, so.
go.
You got anything else from your week?
Let's see. Sonic movie. Gosh, I mean, the only other thing that really is
You don't got to push it. We're an hour 20 in. We're not pressed
okay,
for time
okay.
here, but feel free to
But
share
I mean,
whatever you feel
maybe
like.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna address. Well, maybe we don't have to stay on it too long, but according to my understanding, there are some ramifications for the Will Smith slap that's
Oh,
that's coming in.
I heard. I mean, I didn't look it up or anything, but I saw something like I guess he's banned from the Oscars for 10 years. Is that what
Yeah,
happened?
so I seen that, and I know Netflix and Paramount has actually stepped away from working on some projects with them.
Wow.
So I don't know if they stopped indefinitely and it's just paused, or I don't know if it's like, but
I wonder if that will go so far as to be like whatever service has Fresh Prince of Bel Air on it will be like, yeah, we don't support these views anymore. Message before each episode.
I was wondering that too. Because I know Hulu and I think HBO Max, has the Fresh Prince, the old stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then there's I don't know if you know, but there's a new Fresh Prince that recently was,
Yeah, a movie, right? Or is it a show?
actually, no, it's a show, but
Okay.
it's actually more on the serious side. Like
It's a
they're,
drama. Yeah, I got that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
relatively interested.
Yeah, I actually went to check it out. I mean, the only thing that threw me off was I supposedly heard Ashley, the youngest daughter, is homosexual or something like that.
Is that
Yeah,
like a
so that,
retcon? Like they changed it, or are they
yeah,
saying it was
yeah, yeah.
always like that? They just didn't show it back then?
No, they're changed it. They changed it.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting, but I actually would still like to check out. I don't know. I forget which. I don't know if it's on Peacock or I don't know what is the streaming service.
Yeah. We're not
I
sponsored, so
am
we don't
thinking.
got to find it out. But I don't. The only thing my holdup was that Carlton didn't look like as nerdy as Carlton should.
To me, none of the characters look like themselves. Only
We have
probably
Phil
Will.
isn't fat. Uncle Phil is like fit and like
Yeah,
what's up with
and that
that?
to me is like, yeah, he's a handsome guy. He's a
Yeah.
lawyer, you know. And there was somebody that wrote online because I guess they seen like the first 2, 3 episodes, but somebody wrote online basically went through like their synopsis of the show and their interpretation, and they just said like something like Uncle Phil is like some type of gangster, like he's dealing with yeah, all this stuff. Ashley's homosexual, and they went down the list of all these interpretations of the characters and basically saying the show is destroyed and all that stuff. Now I personally I want to see it before I you know have some type of but yeah, I don't know. But yeah, as far as Will, I just I'm not really sure what to think because I kind of feel like I think there should be ramifications, but yeah, I'm also wondering is that going to help? And I'm also thinking, does it really matter? Because I mean, I don't know if you've seen his property, but he could probably build a whole little town in his property. Like it's so big.
Well,
You
what are you trying to get from that? You trying to take the man's wealth and his like every like what? I don't understand.
Yeah, well, yeah. Actually, I'm trying to figure out what exactly is the goal because to
Yeah.
me, like even if he stopped acting right now, he's fine. So I don't understand what is the goal with
I
I don't
also
know. I'm
heard
just confused.
Yeah, yeah. I also heard that Jada was like giving him crap again, or she was saying like I'm not someone who needs to be defended. That whole stance. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And then my sister told me today that she gave him crap because he did a whole big birthday bash for her 40th birthday, hired like a famous singer to like a bunch of stuff, did a whole ordeal. And I don't know what her problem was with this time, but I guess she was just giving him crap for
Oh, it's
I don't
unfortunate.
know. It again, it's just Jada
There,
is,
there's this I don't know if I want to say it's a rumor, but what has been circulating in many circles about this family and specifically Jada and Will's relationship is the fact that I don't know if you know this, but Jada was incredibly close to Tupac.
well, yeah, weren't they together or something? I didn't know that till recently, but
That I don't know. I just know that he just seen her as the apple of his eye. He even has a poetry book devoted completely to her, like you can go and buy.
yeah,
You know, yeah. But supposedly, and Will has actually shared this in a few interviews, not too often, but he did envy the type of energy that Pac had, when it came to his, I don't know, his masculinity, his the way he carried himself. He was one of those guys that he had that mentality of, I don't know, I want to say maybe the streets and 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 I think Will was under the impression that Jada was one of those ladies that she liked that energy. She liked that, whatever that was, even if it get him in jail,
yeah,
like there was something that was attractive about that. And so Will, I have like all his albums, so I've always kept up with his music. I've always enjoyed his music, but he's always been, of course, the clean rapper. And so been made fun of for years that hip hop, they don't really accept him because he doesn't curse, and so he's made songs about that, addressing that, and how much he's sacrificed making films and getting 20 million, but it really hurt him not to be in the studio when that was his first love, his music. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic because I think to some extent that's a concept a lot of guys I think are fearful of is am I going to be enough for you know my wife, and let's say for example something does happen between a husband and wife when they're out and I don't know the husband doesn't respond a certain way. Let's say they make it back home. Does the wife look at her husband differently? Like, man,
yeah,
you could have hit that guy. You could have
yeah.
said, did more. Like, and does she feel safe? And so, it's a really interesting dynamic. So I almost feel like for the first time, I'm kind of um, leaning a little bit towards, kind of like understanding why Will could have.
You're telling me there could have been a reason behind what he did,
Well, of course, I can't support. I just feel like
James?
but I'm sort of seeing now that I'm seeing the possible foundations for what built up to this. I don't know.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, all those topics are very, important, and they all play a role in the decision making. That with and also just the way the relationship has been open in the public, and they're airing out all their dirty laundry in front of everybody, and
Oh,
that's brutal for anybody to go through, right? The man, like the psychological, you know, not like torment that someone would be going through, right? Having all that in the
mm.
public and just having to deal with it and not, you can't have a mental breakdown. I mean, you can. Clearly, something's happening, but
Oh, yeah, yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
there's definitely you can cause and effect. This is a thing that has been like around since the beginning of time. Uh, things go down and they have an effect later on, and so I think this is just the accumulation of a lot of different areas. And we talked about method acting too. How passionate he is about that. And I actually, we got some good comments. I don't know if you've seen our video on that, but you should. I feel check it out. There's some good comments on there.
Okay, okay,
People are
okay.
liking that one uh,
Really?
and different takes and stuff. And one I wanted to bring up that was interesting was like we kind of disregard a lot of it because of our preconceived notions about the relationship, right? And what this person
Mm,
was saying that it's not really about that because you would hopefully defend someone if you loved maybe your friend that much, right? You have a really best friend and that you saw that something crossed the line with them, right? You would want to defend them in general, right?
mm,
So I think that's worth a discussion too. I responded to the comment and I said something because we did kind of let our that whole time we were kind of talking about like the relationship and how it's hard to defend somebody with all that going on. And
mm,
true, like you don't have to be married to someone to defend them like that. If you care about somebody enough, and you see that they're hurt by something, depending on the scenario, you could, yeah, do something to
mm,
defend it. But
mm,
what I said was that it takes a lot to do that. There are outward morally wrong things in society that I think anyone should object to, no matter their history of the parties involved, right?
mhm.
You see someone, you get what I'm saying, right? So,
Of course.
and then,
Mhm,
but coming away from that, this wasn't one of those times, and then the moral context of like a comedian on stage versus like the relationship also not being very good. That's why we kind of had our opinions the way we did. You know,
mm,
it
mm.
wasn't so much that it has to be a husband or wife or anything, but just so much of that context just makes it not seem like the right thing to do at all. Um, so that's it. It was just some interesting discussion going on there, which I
Yeah,
appreciated.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree.
Yeah. So if that's all, yeah, we can get on to my week. We pretty much talked about a lot of it, with some different movies we saw and stuff. The only extra thing I had, and we're gonna be talking, but this is gonna be a talking point for a while. The whole Elden Ring thing. It's not going anywhere. Still love that game. Still playing it. Some updates, I'd say. I was able
Mm,
to actually pick up another scythe, another weapon. So before I had like a holy scythe, right? And so I was able to find another one, not a holy one, but just a regular one. But when you
mhm.
have a regular weapon, you're able to do different buffs on it to give it attributes like holy damage or whatever, right? So now I'm rocking around with two giant scythes in my hand, and I'm just swinging them like crazy, and it's really cool, like the animation style and different moveset it gives you for that, and the range is great, so it helps a lot with different boss fights and larger enemies. I'm having a blast with that, and I even found I'm able to now because before the regular scythe would do like 55% blood loss, right? And so it would give a
Mm,
status effect, right? So what happens is you have a bar and you build up that status effect, right? And once it's full, it deals a percentage of their total health. I think it's like 20 something percent and that counts for a little enemy and a boss, right? So it's really good against bosses. You build it up, and then a big chunk of their health bar just deleted, right? As soon as you get it to that point.
mm.
So I have added not just one scythe, but now another scythe with 50% blood loss. And so I am like effectively doubling the speed with which I can,
Nice.
activate that effect. So that's been super powerful. And then I've also found one of the best, I guess, Ashes of War, they're called. It's an item that you give to your weapon that allows it to have another status effect, or it scales power with a different attribute. Like you can put something on it that makes it heavy, which will scale with your strength stat. You can put something on it that makes it dexterous, which will scale with your dex stat, right? And so I was able to put something on it that can make it scale holy, which scales with my faith intellectual, like my faith stat. So it does more damage that way, right? And then I found one that was even better that did cold damage. Now, typically in that game, cold damage is like it's from the magic stat, so it's based on intelligence, which is my lowest stat. My intelligence is like 7. So I wasn't going to upgrade that. But the benefit of the frostbite buildup, that's another effect you can start stacking is frostbite. And this one has like a 93%. So it happens really quickly. So now I'm not only dealing holy damage and throwing like lightning at people, right? But I'm also causing them to like hemorrhage and like get the bleed effect on, and then now they're also getting frostbite, which will deal a set amount of damage and then make them more vulnerable to damage for like a set period of time. So it's disgusting, James. It's gross. I just like there was a boss that I fought, and you can summon help, right? I told you about that a while ago or something.
Oh, yeah.
So you can summon little ghosts for help, and what it is, it's typically just an enemy in the game, but it works for you, right? It fights whatever you're fighting. I went down a dungeon, like in the ground or whatever, towards the start that gave me this special one called the Banished Knight Oleg, or whatever, right? And it's this giant knight with like 2 giant swords, and he like does like spin attacks and everything. He's a total badass. Going from that, I had like little basic wolves, right? And now I have like this giant knight that's doing super good damage. So I've just become super powerful in the game. I at least for where I'm at, I'm still like relatively early in the game, so it's easy. And I know it's going to get much harder down the line. I'm like level 50. I've put around like 50 hours into it. It's not very super accurate time because I like will let the game play sometimes and not be playing or whatever, right?
Okay.
But yeah, so I think I'm at a good place where I'm at. It feels awesome to finally like be able to do great damage, when before it's been such a struggle. So yeah, I faced this boss and I summoned my knight Oleg, and then I even summoned one of the NPCs. Do you remember how I told you if you
them, right?
Yeah, so I talked to them, do their quest, and then they show up for a boss fight. And so this lady had 2 axes, and basically what happened, James, is I went down, and the guy came up, and we all just like comped and beat down him like nothing. We just beat his ass, and he didn't get one move off, James. Literally, like 3 different people. You just keep hearing like, like, I had 2 scythes, Oleg had 2 swords, and this lady had 2 axes, and all of us were just beating him relentless, James. And then after, like, it got down to half, and I was like cackling the whole time. I wish I would have recorded it, but I was having a blast. I was like, ah! Like, going.
You still do your training or no?
I haven't done it. I haven't done it recently. It's.
Okay.
It takes up a lot of time, and there's also like a whole performance aspect to it, so it's easier to play. Yeah. I might pick it up again sooner. I think I like doing it with Julie when she's here. We might do that more often. Let me know if that's something you guys want to see. Let us know in the comments or whatever. But anyway.
I think I would see that. Both of you guys?
Yeah. We do that a fair amount, but it's so anyway. When that happened, I was having a blast, and then it got down to half, and then I hemorrhaged him, and I did the frost, so it went half, and then it went like 0. So,
yeah.
And so the difference between regular enemies. So there's like regular enemies, and then there's enemies that have like a pretty big health bar above them that are like, I guess generals, right, or whatever, right?
Fantasy does that sort of.
And it's a boss fight when their health bar is on the bottom of your screen, and it takes up the entire thing, right? So that's how you know. And so seeing this happen, this is my only boss fight, the quickest boss fight I've been a part of, and it just melted. Wow. Yeah, it was wild.
Putting in work to get stronger.
I have been. There is the case of like, so you can get super strong and then go to like the original level, and then you'll automatically you'll do that to anybody, right? So it's all about power scaling and where you play at in the game. And there's for sure still stuff that will beat me down, you know?
Okay,
I
gotcha,
have
gotcha.
not gotten to that level yet, but it is nice to have a little bit of power trip.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure.
I am typically with these games, the boss fights are like what you're there for. And I think I told you last time about the enchanted stag that I fought, right? And how
Hmm.
the like we talked about video game music, the music was serene and it was just a great atmosphere, and the his movements and his attacks were really cool to see. So there's boss fights that are awesome, and you don't want them to end quickly, you know?
Mhm.
You want to sit there and see how that experience is. So with this one, I wasn't too worried. It was just fun to kill him quickly, but I hope that the next couple aren't like that. You know, I would hope they're all pretty harder. And there was one
Hmm.
more. So what happened was I'm in like the magic kind of area now. So it's a giant swamp, beautiful landscape. You see like a castle that's like on like it looked like Hogwarts, like up there in the middle of the thing.
Oh,
And there's a
really?
giant foggy lake and different cliffs and everything.
Mhm.
So I made it to Karia Manor, which I guess is a magic family or whatever, and there's the Knights of the Cuckoo, and I guess they were trying to attack the family, and the family abandoned their castle, but they set up magical defenses, right? So I'm going through the
Hmm.
castle, and the first thing that in the opening area, there's just a bunch of just hands, just
Whoa.
like not unlike big spiders, but just like hands. I don't know if you've
Okay.
seen any gameplay, but yeah, so there's like hands crawling around. I'm like, oh, that's not too big. It's creepy, but I'll kill it. And then there's giant, like not just five fingers, but like this, right? And they hop down and they're just crawling at you super fast, and it was terrifying to say the least. Um, I don't know if
That's
you
wild.
you played Super Smash Brothers like Melee or anything, but you know the glove, the boss.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
felt like that, but way more horror. Like it was like all undead and like creepy and coming at you.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, it
whoa.
was gross. Um, and it was brutal too because it's a giant area and you're running around and like they set traps.
Was
Like
it fast?
so they'll be crawling, then they'll notice you and you know and they'll
Uh,
sometimes they'll just make a fist and like come at you. Sometimes they'll
oh, that's
grab you.
funny. That's funny.
They have a ring on them, and they'll because it's magic, so they'll shoot, and then if that thing hits you, it stuns you, and then they'll come and
Oh
grab you. Yeah,
no.
yeah. So you got to
Gross.
be on your toes. And the
Gosh.
great thing about these games is they're known for their gimmicks. So like
Hmm.
there's a very specific visual for where an item is. It's like a little white like dot that has looks like a little white flame kind of, right? Bright. It's where an item is. So there's an item and I go to pick it up, and as soon as I do, it
Oh.
grabbed me and like threw me down, and I guess they were showing like the fingertips and it was underground. There was an item there. So this game messes with you, man.
That's wild.
So I had some fun, being Edward Scissorhands, just like taking out different enemies like that. And that's what's cool about it, though. Like, if it's cryptid, but it's like unique enemies like that, you know?
That's
Um,
cool. I
yeah.
like that.
So there was that, and then the boss of that area was a like
Hmm.
giant knight on a horse. It was like a astral projection of a knight, right? Because magic. But so it was a
Okay.
giant knight on a horse, and I don't know. I guess it's like a spear. It's called like a naginata. It's like a samurai weapon. It's a spear, but it's like different. You know, I don't know if that's the only type, but that's what it looked like to me. I guess I feel like a Mongol warrior would have used it too. But
Mhm.
that type of weapon, and it's a spear with like a big blade at the end of it. And then at the other end of this thing, this guy had like a magic bulb or something. So he was casting spells while he was like going around swinging.
No,
Yeah, yeah. So
really.
he's on horseback, and I'm just sitting there with like two scythes trying to hit him, and he's like casting different magic daggers that will wait a second and then all come at you. He will,
Oh,
if you get too close, he kicks you with his horse and shoots a giant like magic arrow at you that explodes. Um, and he swings at you with yeah. That fight was fun. That one
wow.
was really and he was astral projected, so I couldn't activate hemorrhage, bleed proc, or the frostbite. He wasn't like a human, so none of my
Oh,
statuses worked. I just had to go at him with damage. Um,
wow.
yeah,
Yes.
lightning worked though. Threw some lightning at his
Good.
ass. Yeah. So that boss fight was cool. I had some fun with that, and
Nice. Good.
yeah, so I'm having a blast with that one. I'm just learning all sorts of new things and new powers and stuff, and I finally feel like I'm at a place where I'm like, it's like this is dope. This is what I wanted, right? Because you start
Yeah.
out so weak and powerless, and then now it's like, okay, Daddy's got some tools in his belt.
That's so funny. Now you can really like really truly explore a little bit more confidently, you know.
Yeah, yeah, you don't get
And that's
your
fun.
butt hurt every
That's
time
funny.
you go.
I feel the same with like a Pokemon game, you know. Like you
Yeah,
always start off with one Pokemon, but as you progress, you know, you get stronger, and then you're not afraid to like just go in any area, you know. You
there's
know that
times when you
Pokemon.
avoid the tall grass and times when you don't mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's so interesting for that transition, you know, because yeah, even those same enemies that yeah, once upon a time you were like powering you know, away and trying to run away from the fight. Yeah, now you're like going through a number of them with the same Pokemon, and you don't have to like heal or anything like that. But no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah.
That here where
I'll put it
you can
this
actually
way.
move around a little more confidently. You know.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. I'm waiting to be humbled. You know,
Oh,
I have this
oh,
complex of me. I feel powerful.
oh,
You know, so I'm waiting for the big boss fights to put me in my place.
oh my goodness.
Um, yeah, so that's fun, and
That's cool. That's cool. That's cool.
I would say with Pokemon the comparison you made, it's like yes, that's the right idea, but picture like the last town and the Elite Four like right next to your hometown, and you can go there and try it out. It does because with Pokemon you're barred. You're like, oh, I have to get a boat ride to this place, right? Nah, it's there.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
there, try it, see how you do.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah,
That's
that's the
interesting.
only real difference I'd say.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah. Um.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Other than that, like we said, we watched some good movies. So
Okay.
what I will say is about Caitlin has, and I think we might have talked about this a little bit off podcast, but Caitlin has elected to start showing us Lost, the show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh?
Have you
Okay.
seen it? Do you know about it?
Yes, I will say that once upon a time I was obsessed with it, like the rest of the world was when it first came out.
Yeah.
So I did see it until the very end.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, would you say it's a good or a bad show, James?
I will say that maybe, if I remember correctly, all the way up to season 4 or 5, I think it was going kind of strong, and then a little bit beyond that, it went into a very odd direction. You know,
Yeah.
like I think I don't know. It just seemed like the more I watched the show, it just seemed like the more weirder it got. Like, and not weirder in a I don't know. At the first set of weird situations, like it kind of was fascinating to me. You know, especially like the first 2, 3 seasons. Like
Yeah.
I feel like you know you can't wait to really see okay what's going to happen next and finding out more about these characters and I love how it's jumping back and forth. You know, with you know what happened in the past, and then in like season 2, like a little bit further back, and you know, and I just love how you know, in at one point it's jumping forward, you know, what's
Yeah.
going to happen, you know, and then you're like, well, what the heck is you know, but ultimately it just yeah, it had a very interesting direction it went, you know, but yeah, I will say for the most part I enjoyed the show, I enjoyed the concept. But I
Yeah.
will say the strongest seasons were early on, you know, maybe 3, 4. I'm trying to remember how far it went,
Hmm.
but yeah, but I know it went in a very odd direction.
Yeah, I've heard mixed things. I mean, I've heard after looking it up, because Caitlin's like, look up people's reviews. That people saying, oh, it's the best show ever. I've heard it's similar to Game of Thrones, where it ended just badly. I
Mm.
heard it keeps you on carrot on a stick for a while, and it doesn't really resolve anything. Um, I've heard. I don't know if it
That's
was.
an fair. That's a fair assessment,
Yeah.
somewhat, because it's like you're always wanting to know what's going to happen next, and after a while, it's like, okay, what's going to happen next? You know, it's
Yeah.
like at first you're thinking, oh, this is going to get resolved, and it's not. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, season 3 now, like, okay, what's going on with with this particular thing, So
So what Caitlin was
yeah, I
saying
think
was like it's all about the character arcs, and that's what's good, the good writing with it, right? And
that helped a lot. That helped a lot.
yeah, and I
Yeah,
could see that, you know. I haven't
yeah.
been watching it as devoutly, but she will put it on, and Julie will watch with her, and I'm doing my thing on my computer, and I'll catch, peripheral,
Okay.
catch some of the plot lines via osmosis and all that.
Okay.
But so I'm vaguely interested in some things, but it's more so like it's such a giant commitment. And when she's like, "Oh, let's watch,"
It,
yeah, when she's like, "Oh, let's watch Lost," and I was like, "No, no, I don't want to." Like, I don't know if it was a Simpsons bit, but I got the idea that it was all a dog's dream in the end, or something like that. Um,
oh, dog.
you know, uh, so just knowing that and knowing the payoff wasn't that good, and knowing because I'm all about time management, right? Knowing there's all these
Mm.
shows and different things that I haven't seen that I still want to. Like I've heard The Wire is like one of the best shows ever. I know I want to watch.
Yeah, I heard. I heard.
Yeah, I know I want to watch The
Mm.
Sopranos. There's different
Mm.
things that I know I want to watch and dedicate my time to. And Lost is like an hour episode
Ah,
with 24 episode seasons, James. Like that's unheard of now. I didn't know that was allowed.
yeah.
Like 24 1 hour
Yeah,
episodes.
it was like you said, it was a commitment, and I will say, like I said, the first 3, 4 seasons, I was like hooked. And after a while, I was able to kind of balance it out a little bit and say, okay, well,
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm trying to remember how did I see it. I don't know if I used because I don't know if it was on Netflix at the time.
I think this
I'm
was
not sure if
before
it was.
Netflix, or Netflix was doing
Yeah,
DVDs back then.
yeah. I'm trying to remember how did I watch it. Maybe because I don't remember watching it on TV because I never really did well on watching stuff on TV. In fact, it's kind of weird watching like these Disney Star Wars shows that drop an episode a week because I'm not used to that. I'm so used to
Binging.
Walking Dead, all the entire season here for you to watch,
Yeah.
at your leisure, the whole thing. And so I'm accustomed to that now. So, but I don't know how I watched it, but I just know it just threw me completely off. It just, with just the direction it ultimately went. So, but I do like a lot of the characters, and it's very fascinating to me how many people that they introduced and actors throughout the
There are a lot
series.
of good actors in it.
You're going to see a lot of people you're very familiar with, and you're like, oh wow, they made it to Lost, like
Yeah, that's
you
what
know,
I'm seeing. Like Rob McElhenney, the dude from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, he was in an episode. Um, the one of the characters from a video game I played, Red Alert 3, there was a general from that was in there. That's in the
yeah,
So lots
Michelle
of like
Rodriguez,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
We got to that whole family arc.
Yeah,
um,
it's fascinating. I was like, oh, okay, wow, this is happening.
Evangeline
Yeah,
Lilly, Wasp, she's like one of the main characters.
oh yeah, Kate, oh yeah, gotta have Kate.
What I've found is that anytime anyone's in trouble and they're about to get out, she is the cause of why they can't get out yet. Like she's always like in the vulnerable situation or whatever, just useless.
Like something like that. Yeah, it's very yeah.
um,
It's interesting. It's funny because there's a show that just came out recently, and I forgot the African American actor with his son on the show. His son, he's always chasing after.
I don't know the names on Lost. You're saying
Yeah. I don't know the little boy. He's always running around, and his father's always trying
Walter
to take
is
care of
their
him.
character, the
Yeah.
boy's
Walt.
character. Yeah,
Yeah,
Walt.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, and he was always chasing after him. Always. But I think
I'm going
that
to get my
actor.
son. It's a
Yeah,
father's right to get my
that's what he
son.
cares about.
I'm gonna
Oh
lock you
yeah,
in a thing and take all the guns
and
because I
it,
need to get
and
my
it,
son.
yeah, yeah. But there's a show that he just started on. I forgot what it's called, but it's like the makers of Lost, and he's on it. And he's like one of the main characters. So yeah, so I'm
Is it a
and they have.
docu-series?
I don't know what streaming service and but it's like different episodes.
Oh,
Um, yeah, they're like different episodes, but it has an almost very similar concept. It's a mystery. I think you go into a town, but you can't get out, something like that.
some Silent Hill
Almost reminds
stuff.
me of. Yeah. I was just about to say like, so I may have to check it out.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
Um,
but Lost. Yeah, I would say overall, I think it really depends on like if you're watching a few episodes from the first season, and let's just say like you watch 10, or 5, if you're finding that you're getting drawn into it, then I would recommend, yeah, check it out. Give it a chance. But if you're not really getting invested in these characters and you really don't care what's happening to Jack and Kate and
Oh God, don't
then
get me
then
started about
leave it.
Jack. Don't.
Come on, he's the doctor, he's the leader. Come on, he's
No,
automatically the
he's always
yeah.
wrong. He's like
And then there's Sawyer. Oh, Sawyer.
Sawyer's great. We're talking about a show from like the early 2000s and no one's gonna remember.
No, right?
Um, but that was my whole thing, though, James. Like, yes, I know. Like, there had to have been some good writing. There had to have been something good. Otherwise, it wouldn't have lasted that long. I would have been intrigued, and I'm getting intrigued. I wanted to avoid it. I didn't want to dip in the pool at
Oh,
all because
oh,
it's
I see.
7 seasons of 24 episodes, an hour long
Yeah,
each. You know.
yeah. It's a serious commitment. Serious commitment.
And like I said, there's like so many other things I want to be doing. So, and I don't typically sit down and watch with them. They do their own thing, but it's just like another. We love her, but she's been making us watch a bunch of stuff.
That's so funny you say that because I was actually thinking about because I haven't gone through all the Harry Potter films. I think I've seen like one and then a little bit of the second one, but
Yeah,
bits and pieces of all the other ones. So I'm like, man, I have these streaming services, like at least two different streaming services I have all the films, and then they have like the two Fantastic Beasts, and then I know the third one's about to come out in
yeah.
theaters. Yeah, so I'm just like, man, I at least want to familiarize myself with these films. So I'm
They
actually thinking about committing to.
Yeah, Julie made sure to sat me down and watched it this past Christmas. I don't know if we talked about that before, but
No, no, no. I think
yeah.
you guys were talking about seeing certain films and sharing with
Um,
each other.
Yeah, so she loves them, and I stopped watching them after the third one as a kid, Prisoner of Azkaban, because they killed Buckbeak, which is one, really cool beast. And I was like, I stopped watching the movie. At that point, I was traumatized, and didn't watch anything after that. Uh,
Interesting.
but yeah, we finished watching them all this past Christmas. They're good. There was a good twist at
Okay.
the end and stuff, and good.
I'm gonna,
Yeah,
I
they're
think
worth.
I'm gonna start that soon actually because I'm at least one time I just want to familiarize
Yeah,
myself
it's worth it.
because
I'd
people
say.
always make these references and I have no idea what people are talking about. And so it's like let me just and then it's like I don't know what it was 7 films, because
Yeah.
yeah, and then it's like and now the Fantastic Beasts, so I'm like I have to at least get on this. I at least want to see them once. So
Yeah, no, it's probably worth doing that.
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Wow.
Do you wanna take? We did a pretty good shot here. Do you want to take a little break before we get into the next stuff?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, we're gonna take a break. You go first, James. I'm gonna talk about ourselves. Our sponsor is us. We have stuff, links all in the description. For all of our different social medias, you want to hear what I'm writing about, what James is talking about, or James has a YouTube channel that'll be up here. Um, Unique Perspectives. Check that out. He goes into more in-depth topics about things more personal to him. A lot of good things there. I encourage you to check all that out. All the links are in the description, and then check us out. Also, if you're listening, if you're watching on YouTube, check us out on the other platforms. If you are on the go or something, you're on a long road trip, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon, Audible, Google Podcasts now. Anywhere you get that, we'd love for you to give us a listen there. Rate us 5 stars, give us a review. We'd love to read them. We'd love to see what you think. But that also tells the algorithm that you like this show. We hear it all the time in real life. Let us know online. That helps us get outreach to more people. If you all could tell like one other person, right, you think would be interested in any of the topics we got, give them the name Stage Clear Podcast. Look it up on Google or YouTube, whatever. We're out there. If there's a particular topic that you're listening to on Spotify or wherever you're listening, go to the YouTube section. We got these specific different segments for the and more interesting topics of each podcast. About 3 videos a week. Yeah, so I'm also going to get more scheduling out there so you guys know. Typically, these podcasts are going to drop every Monday evening, and then we got Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday at 10 a.m. Central Time. We drop the weekly videos of the week's podcast. So, yeah, if you're interested in any of that, please check us out on all those platforms. Links will be in the description. Appreciate you guys. I'm also going to go on this break, so we'll be right back. our selfish plug. We have some other topics to get at you. That's enough entertainment. It's been like 2 hours, so we'll get on to some other stuff. What I actually wanted to bring to you today, and this is part of, I guess, different things we've talked about before we started the podcast, the whole presenting your opinions and ideas about controversial stuff like online in the open, right? And being open to the repercussions of that, right? Whether that's friends or acquaintances having disagreements, having like awkward conversations with people that trusted friends, or even just like people that you knew and then maybe they're not following you, they leave a bad comment, whatever, right? Kind of being open to that criticism. And so I'm bringing this up because, and it wasn't even necessarily about this format, but we did last week, we talked about transgender women in, against in sports competing versus women. And that topic got a lot of attention for our channel and everything, so that was good. And it's a worthwhile discussion to have. And what I've found is most people, like online at least, I haven't seen much negative feedback there. I think it's a pretty commonplace stance, that trans women will have a distinct advantage in most cases in most sports versus the actual woman, and it's an unfair advantage, so it shouldn't really be allowed. So that's been pretty commonplace, I thought, at least, right? And even with my friend group before, we would hear stories of like a boxing match, right? And the lady like breaking the other person's skull, the trans woman breaking the lady's skull, just because of the vast, power superiority. So this stuff I thought was just kind of baseline. It wasn't too hard to explain or anything. But recently, and I don't know if you're aware, but there was a bill in Florida that I guess is allowing for what they called routine sports physicals to be required before children's sports, right? And that's brought up some controversy in my own friend group. This is my close friend group from high school, and I love these guys, and it's my, I know they have my back and everything. But they posted that and in our little group chat. And they were saying, "Oh, that's terrible, sickening, awful." And from my perspective, I've been a collegiate athlete for like 5 years now. I played all throughout high school, and for me, I saw it said routine sports physical, and for me that means what we do every year. It's required to play a sport. You have to get a physical, right, to see if you're healthy, to see if you're eligible to play. And so I was under the assumption that like it didn't really matter. We already do that anyway. So what's the problem? I didn't understand why they were so taken aback by it. So I said that I'm like, yeah, no, we do a bunch of sports physicals every year for football and everything. So I don't see the problem here. And they kind of just just berated me a little bit for that take, They're like, delete this and like other stuff, And I was like, really, like. Okay, like I wasn't even getting to the like transgender part of it. It was more so just like for that specific bill, right? And I haven't read the bill or anything, but it did cause controversy, right? And so basically my point in bringing this up, and I could get further into the meat of that conversation if you want, but we went back and forth on Twitter a little bit. I was basically outnumbered like 1-5, 1-4, and but I felt comfortable. Like I wasn't gonna shy away from that. Like this is how I feel, And I'm very open with things that I believe. Like I'm coming from a place of like this is what I believe and this is why. And unless you can explain to me a better reason or some other unless you can, make your case, I'm willing to hear it. I'm willing to consider it. But if it's not, substantial, then I feel the way I feel, and this is why, But I'm always trying to hear another perspective, and I'm not trying to stay in an echo chamber, I want to hear all the different perspectives and make a decision based on that. So, and it's hard when it's like your group of best friends, because you talk about nerd stuff, you joke around, we never really talk about anything too serious with that friend group, at least. I have really good friends from football and everything where it's, we can talk about almost anything, right? It's just different friend groups, my nerd friends versus my football friends, And I've accepted, and not that this is happening with them, but I've accepted that going down this path of expressing your opinions, controversial as they may seem, or contrary to the narrative that's kind of mainstream narrative that's pushed, you could get some people that don't agree with you or that will just not be your friend anymore because of their political views, right? Um, so I accept that, but it is really hard to hear like just that immediate, I guess disgust with an opposing opinion, right?
Mm.
Especially from some people that you like, are your boys, So essentially, yeah, we went back and forth on Twitter, and then we started talking on Discord about it because they were online, and I thought it's better to just talk there. So we talked a little bit, and we kind of went back and forth. It ended up like not really being resolved, and there was like I don't know, a couple minutes of like silence afterwards, and then they kind of just went back to the nerd talk or whatever, and I was just uh, I don't know, I just left it silent. I just felt kind of outside and like not. I don't know. It was a weird feeling, and I went to bed like just feeling bad about it. Like I may have changed their opinion on me. Like I may have been seen as uncaring when that's not at all what I'm trying to come about. You know. So I texted one of them the other day, like explaining some things, going more in depth and reaching out, like where I was coming from, and that was fruitful. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to bring up the conversation to you. Like, what have your experience been with sharing your political views, and how have people responded, and how close has it been to you and your heart? Like, because these were some of my best friends, and it just I that's how I felt. I was just hurt by it. I felt like I was an outsider, and like they didn't. Not that they have to agree with me, but they were so adamant against it. And we can have discussions like that. I want to encourage that. I want us to be more talking about stuff that matters a little bit more sometimes. Being able to have those conversations without any hangups. But I don't know. I couldn't help but feel I kind of just took a poop on the table, and everyone had to just talk about it. Um, the vibe was just different.
Interesting, interesting, interesting.
And I can get way
Man,
more into the specifics of that, but
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, my history with not only social media, but my faith and more so my um, political views as well. And yeah, I think it helped that my family, we were all talkers and stuff like that. So we were always expressing ourselves and agreeing and disagreeing and things like that, even before I became like an adult. And it took a while for me to be comfortable kind of sharing, but I noticed very early on that as I was, writing on social media, even like 15 years plus ago, people had opinions. People had other thoughts about anything I said, anything, you know. If I mentioned that, I really admired ladies with nice feet, it's like, hey, you're a weirdo, you're a foot fetish guy. If I said, well, I believe Jesus is the only way, oh, you're some religious zealot, you're trying to impose your religion on everyone. If I believe that, men have no place in, even now, participating in female sports, it's like, oh, you're a bigot, you're a Trump, conservative, you're trying to push white supremacy and you're trying to, um, uh, you know, uh, hold everyone back and push your beliefs on everyone else. And it's interesting because, I didn't know how to take all of that because I started noticing first off that a lot of the relationships that I have with people, it was almost like some of the relationships I thought that were actually grounded and solid. I found out that as soon as we put a certain topic on the table, I realized that I didn't actually have the kind of relationships I had with certain people, not all, but certain people.
yeah,
And and it was very uncomfortable initially. Initially, it was very uncomfortable, and I thought to myself, man, this is like a nightmare. Like it's almost like I don't know, it's almost like building a house or building something, having a foundation that you thought was strong, and then like an actual like I don't know earthquake or hurricane or and trials happen, and then you realize the foundation that you thought you were building on how strong it actually is now that's being tested for the first time. So I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm in a place where I don't have an issue with disagreeing with people, and I also don't have an issue with expressing where I stand, and but not pushing it on people, but also drawing a line in the sand and saying, okay,
yeah,
well, thank you for sharing your opinion about that, and yeah, it could be very disheartening for some relationships because not everyone, but there's a lot of people that are under the impression that They think one way, and because they have access to you and because you're in their life, well, you're somehow obligated to think the same way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for them, it's almost like, well, yeah, it's not enough for them to believe in something, but everyone they have access to must believe in that same idea as well. And one of the things I appreciate about being a Christian man and somebody who has conservative values is one of those um, key pillars that separates the West from the rest of the world is we believe in having a healthy exchange about ideas and voting and having disagreements and still moving forward together. But it's a lost art in some respects. And it's maybe this recent experience is teaching you this. Maybe you've already experienced it, or maybe you're going to a little bit more to another magnitude. Because this podcasting alone, it kind of it places you in a position where you are an easier target. You
Yeah.
are an easier target, and it doesn't have to be with people that 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 know you. It could be people that are just stumbling onto this platform and they're listening to you speak, and they're like, "Oh no, I don't like that." So now, but I think one of the most important things is to keep in mind that when you have beliefs that you stand by, make sure that you have facts, of course. It's not some type of emotional response, but you have facts and you have data to support what it is that you believe in. Just like when it comes to biblical things, I'm not prepared to argue with somebody if I present to them God's word and they are saying, "Well, I disagree with God." It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's not my problem. That's between you and God.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting because I've acquired a reputation for being controversial, but it's not controversy. It's just me simply disagreeing, and I'm thinking for myself, and that's it. But again, there are people that they're not comfortable with that. They don't want for you to think independently. They want you to think the way that they think.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I'm not, I don't know the full details of some of these exchanges you've had with, um, the gentleman that you're making reference to. But I think this is a time when you do want to evaluate how everyone is responding in that sense. Like even for me, I have a buddy that he invites me to his house periodically. He loves to call me every week or two. Really considers me one of his best friends, and he has an atheistic worldview. Really polite, very kind. Always very giving. My last birthday, he was the person who invited me to his home and prepared a grand meal for me and invited his family. So he can be very loving. But I noticed that when it comes to biblical, godly related things on social media, he has a very foul mouth when it comes to those things. He's still an enemy of God. And so it's something for me to keep in mind that if I'm going to maintain this relationship with him, I can't pretend that I don't see him blaspheming God's name or saying these awful things about God. I have to, keep in mind that he's both he's all of this.
Yeah.
He's all of it. So yes, but just moving forward, I think it's important just to know where you stand and why you stand where you stand. And that it's okay to disagree. And it's sometimes
Yeah.
I even purposefully share with people that, hey man, I appreciate you sharing that, and I know it may not have been very comfortable for you to share that. I know we have different views, but it's okay to just remind people that, hey, I appreciate you having the courage to share that with me. I know you probably know I don't support that idea. But yeah, you have you have the autonomy to believe that. And so, but yeah, it's a very interesting position to be in, Tim. To be honest with you, when you stand on top of a hill, which is what we're doing right here on the screen, and you start making truth claims, because we're living in a world where unfortunately good is being interpreted as bad, and bad is being interpreted as good. So
Yeah.
yeah. So it's going to be going to be a tricky situation, but I think
And
you have a
yeah,
good line on you.
I appreciate that. And that's why I wanted to bring it up to you because I know you're so well versed in this whole topic because you've been doing it for years and you know all about it. And I'm curious, like, how, and I know, I'm pretty sure, like you said, family is like not turned on you, but just like had bad or different opinions on you after sharing certain things, becoming who you are. Um,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
so that's what was tough for me is like, this is like my closest group of friends since high school. Um, and I don't think and the other thing is like I agree with you. I think we can disagree, and I think that's healthy. I think it's good to have different opinions and be able to express them. We never really would talk about politics or anything too much. I think because of those reasons, but I was always willing to. It's just you're not gonna be the guy that always like won't. That's all you talk about, right? You can't like. No one wants to hang out with that dude, you know.
Yeah, spoil the fun, and
Yeah. Um, but it's like there's got to be a time and place for it, right? And so I just figured, and it was tough because when he sent that bill, and like four of them responded right away with like one or two word like negatives, and I just thought, well, I don't think it's all that bad, you know. But time had passed; they had already sent other stuff, you know. I was like, do I just let it go? Do I bring it up even? And I was like, no, I mean, no, they did that. Like I was like, yeah, you know, this is how I feel about it, right? Um,
Mm,
so it was just I'm more so bringing it up because of the way I felt afterwards, you know, having
mm,
like not them turn on me, but just being outnumbered on that part, and
mm,
and I thought I defended it well. You know, I thought it was a good conversation. We just kind of didn't really get to a place where we agreed, and then I didn't follow up. I didn't continue the conversation. Like I said, there was a long silence, and then they just kind of kept talking about whatever else. I felt more so that I didn't want to uh, have to. I don't know. I didn't want to keep them on the topic if they didn't want to keep talking about it. But I thought someone would have said something to like, let's get a resolution here. But no, we kind of just left it. I don't know. We ended up talking about how there was an argument of statistics. Like I brought up Leah Thomas and that whole thing that happened, and the how there's trans women fighters that beat on women, and my buddy said like, yeah, but those are two like examples that are really pushing that agenda. I don't know if they're credible or whatever, right? And to me, I was like so taken aback because like what agenda? Like I didn't understand like that's just, and I always feel like it's from the opposite side that has like that narrative, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but we were more so conceding to the points of like neither of us knew the whole statistics, right? And I wasn't trying to
mm,
get to a point where that would like matter completely because we haven't looked at it, and I don't want to have to Google search to prove this point. And we both went
mm,
back and forth on that, like do I have to Google it? Is that what it's going to take? And I'm like, no, you don't have to. Like, we shouldn't have. I get it. Like, but if I'm going to concede that maybe not every trans woman will be in a distinct advantage every time, you have to concede the other way too. Like, you don't know either. You know. Um, he ended up.
yeah. Wow.
You know, I thought it was like a common conception that typically like the man will be more what's it called athletically inclined than the natural woman. Um, but I mean, and like I said, I'm always quick to admit when I haven't done due diligence, I haven't done research. I wasn't preparing for a debate. I didn't look this stuff up. I don't have statistics ready. I just have what I've seen, right? And he didn't really have anything that he's seen out the gate that going the contrary, but he did look up and found that there was a trans woman in Olympic lifting that competed and didn't even place, right? And so he was saying that lifting is one of the sports that you would assume the men would do a lot better, and then this is one that didn't even place. And so I conceded that point, but I still held that, like, I think en masse that it was the other way around. But so we got into that's what kind of left it open ended. Like, we didn't really come to a resolution. And there's a lot of other
Mm,
topics that went to the bill specifically. Like, that was a tangent, right? The bill is about
mm,
whether or not kids need to be going through these extra physicals. And they're saying they brought up points of like how it's just um, a bad thing that'll lead to more sexual abuse cases. It's not a physical for your health to determine if you're healthy to play. It's just something to look at your junk. It's not, it's not, and also that it shouldn't be necessary. We're making it a problem when it shouldn't have to be, as far as like kids sports. They just want to play and feel included with their group. And excluding a group, it's just let the kids have fun, right?
mm,
Um, but essentially, like, it's not like it does matter, the fairness of it, and in certain sports more so than others. But as far as like, kids do care about their sport, they put a lot of time and effort into it, and it does affect them whether they win or lose. But not only that, I guess it was also getting to like the age range, right? They were talking
mm,
about, are we talking about middle school? Are we talking about high school or college, whatever? And they were saying more high school, which is I can see if the kid is younger that the winning and everything it might not matter as much. But when you're in high school, for sure, and you're already taking yearly physicals. So my whole point is, if you're already getting the physical, what's the point of just you're in the area already? Just mark down what sex they were. I didn't think it was super controversial to have to do that, but they thought differently. And I was also saying that I would hope people would get these physicals from their trusted primary healthcare physicians, you know?
Uh-oh.
And if there's some like problem with like trust there, you shouldn't be going to that doctor in the first place, right? I know on the Olympic committee, the women's gymnastics team was abused for years, and that's awful,
Yeah.
and that's just
Yeah.
systemically that's terrible.
Yes.
But hopefully, parents would take do things the right way and go to their own trusted doctor with these things that are required for sports. It's not like they're picking someone from the school staff to look at your kid's junk.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
so we just had different points of view on this stuff, and I thought I defended myself well, but we just went on tangents and ended up where I told you, where it's like I didn't have statistics ready and he didn't, and it was left up in the air. Even though I'm not sure if you
Mm.
have any by your head, but I'm almost positive that naturally like trans women would be more in an advantageous position than regular women, but could
I
be.
mean, yeah, to be honest with you, I mean, although I could look up, basic biology differences between a male and a female, I think this is one of those areas in which it's common sense, and
Yeah.
this is what I would say, it's common sense. We know that there's a difference between, I don't know, a woman trying to hit a man and fight a man, and he's defending himself versus a man hitting a woman and she's trying to defend herself. We all know that naturally men are built differently.
Yeah.
Even and that's a bit smaller. His muscle structure, his bones, he's built to be more resilient. And it's a way God designed all of us. And I don't want to say it's a conservative thing, but a lot of us um, that have this perspective on our end, like it's just knowing basic biology. It's not something that requires a Google search. It's
Yeah.
something that it just built differently. I mean, even with your build, could you imagine, you know, how with any sport. Like I don't know, imagine a lady your size trying to compete with you in football. I mean, you would bulldoze over her. You would bulldoze over her. And so um, yeah, but I also realize that there are people, and I'm realizing this more now, that there are people that I'm going to say entertain the thoughts of, well, now that this person has identified as the opposite gender, well, now we have to play along as if that's what's happening. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, to me, I'm uncomfortable with that because it's almost like reality no longer exists now. Now we can, and it's one thing for a person to say, "Hey, I'm really a woman, even though I'm born a man." That's one thing. But for other people to agree with that person, and I'm going to say entertain that delusion, okay, and I'm using the word, not you.
Yeah.
I'm using it, and this is gender dysphoria. This is somebody who is identifying as another sex, and there's no evidence of that. And one of the basic arguments everyone always, especially on the right, we like to bring up is that we all die and somebody digs up Leah Thomas' bones, but no one's going to say, "Oh, hey, look at this female. We know from the muscles, I mean, the bone structure, this is a male.
Yeah.
This is a man. This is a male, and that's it." And so, um, yeah, but I also understand that there are people on the opposite end who, for I'm not entirely sure for what reason, they almost see it as a way of being progressive in our society. Um, when we open up the possibilities of, well, maybe this person is this, or maybe this person is that. But yeah, we've had a lot of issues with, one thing I just want to address before I, bring it back to you is, before the virus and everything, I'm going to say maybe 2018, 17. I'm not sure when it was. My mother was at Denny's actually, and she was with the family, and I wasn't there. And she was bringing two of the little boys, really young at the time. I don't know if they were 3 or 4. She was bringing them in the female's restroom with her because of course, she can't go in the males with them, and just like what ladies usually do. And so I think she was walking in with them, and as she was, she was done and helping them, she was actually in the process of walking, out, and a man walked in, you know, big, Adam's apple, the structure of a man clearly, but he was dressed as a woman, you know. And my mother incidentally said, "Oh, this is actually the women's restroom,"
Yeah.
you know. And the guy looked at her and said, "Well, yeah, I know, I'm a woman." And I think my mother understood what was happening, and so she didn't challenge it, but she carried on, and she left, you know.
Yeah, just
And
off a habit, she said that. Like, it could have been an honest mistake, right? Like, for the guy to do that.
well, yeah, I think she was aware that this is just not. She's not about to debate with a guy in the woman's breath. And but there is this domino effect that has affected. And I don't know if you would know a lot of the cases where there are sexual assaults that have happened in targets and restaurants and even in public schools, because there are some, boys or guys that identify as female, and because some people in our society entertain that, they are free to assault little girls and children and women,
Yeah.
and that ultimately is who it affects. Just as you see with these female sports, being dominated by males, it's women and children, unfortunately, that this affects.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But it's unfortunate, and I think that um, holding on to your relationships, I think it's very important and imperative to value your relationships and keep them in mind, and cultivate a very, I don't know, like a strong, reinforced spirit of just what it is that you guys have as a foundation for your friendship. But I also would just recommend to you specifically, make sure that you're not compromising with what your belief system is,
Yeah.
especially if it's grounded in reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, because last thing you want is to be surrounded by people, and I'm not saying it's these gentlemen, but even in the future, other groups, you don't want to be around people that you're playing pretend with, people that they're not basing their ideas in reality. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter how many people agree, there is something as such as right and wrong.
Yeah. So I'm gonna write this down so we can hit it when we get to religion, but it's how you
Okay.
define reality, right? Because I feel like someone else could say the same thing about how we feel about the Bible, you know,
Okay.
and all of that, right? So we'll get to that in a minute. Um, how we feel about the Bible's reality, or the reality of the Bible. So with that, yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. They are a good group of friends, and it's not a problem, right? I just,
Mm.
I was wondering because I felt like you do, where it's like I think it's okay to disagree, but I felt in my core, I was just upset. I felt like an outsider. I was like, oh man, like it's really like they're really, and I felt disappointed because, like you said, maybe like the same thing of like, oh, they have to think like me or whatever. I might have fallen into that trap,
Mm.
and it just hurt that they didn't. When it seems like
Yeah.
it's so obvious, like you said, right? And it
Mm.
is. And even now, you see me using sometimes trans woman instead of man, and that's one of the things they harped on. Is like trans woman is a woman, brother. Like that was something that was said to me, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
no, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
it basically got to the point where like, what determines that? And they basically are of the thought that like, that if someone identifies as that, they're a woman. That's all it takes. And I obviously, I think it's too easy to go into like, oh, I identify as an attack helicopter, right? That's been said a bunch of times, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, if that's the case, I'm Superman. So
Yeah, yeah. And Julie was actually, my wife Julie was watching just some video, and I was listening part hand, but this guy had some type of provocative sign, and this gay man approached him and said, "Why are you saying that stuff or whatever?" And he said, "Hold on, you need to address me as like a white lesbian," you know. And he eventually they went back and forth, and he was insisting he was a white lesbian, and the gay guy eventually addressed him as that, right? And then at the end, he mentioned that he was black, and he's like, no, 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 hold on, I'm a white lesbian. So it's like, yeah, these and it's just different. It's two different mindsets. Someone's trying to accommodate someone going through a tough time or seeing their gender dysphoria, whatever, right? Trying to be courteous to them, but not acknowledging reality, right? And that the other person is kind of using that in jest and using it as a weapon, not using it genuinely, right? And so I'm not trying to make a joke of it. I'm not trying to like. At the time, I'm trying to just have a discussion with him, right? And when I go into this space, I will lay myself out as the target because I'm fine with that. I will admit my faults. I will admit that, like, yeah, I don't have many trans friends. I don't know their situation. I haven't talked to many people, and that's my own fault. Maybe if I'm so interested in this, maybe I should make more effort to hear their side of it, right? Um, I don't know how well that would go over with someone who's actually going through all that. If they'd be willing to tell me their story for knowing my background and how I feel. Um, but at the same time, there's only so far that can go. If I relent that, and so I more so was hurt because I feel like I may have seemed cold-hearted and not caring. Like they said, it's kind of evident that you don't care for trans people or whatever, and I just was kind of hurt by that because I care about everybody. So much of my life is like trying to help people and like learn people's stories and get them to be the best version of themselves. As am I trying to be the best version of myself. It's all about holding each other accountable, right? We're all in this great struggle together, and we can make a better society if we all just, well, it's hard because we don't all agree on the same moral standard. We don't agree on the same things, right? So what's right is wrong is not the same for everybody, unfortunately. But essentially, you want to get around a group of people, your circle of friends, that will build you up, and you all be the best version of yourselves, and you keep each other accountable. That's what you would want, and that's how you kind of build a better society.
It's definitely ideal. It's definitely ideal.
That being said, I concede the fact I don't think I have all the answers. I'm still young, very little life experience and everything. And there's things maybe I haven't considered. That's why I keep other people around. And if it's one of my closer friends, even better. We can have those conversations. It was just
Mm,
tough. Um,
mm.
and that's what really got me is like to insinuate that I'm not caring. When I care so much about people.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so that's why I was using trans woman. And even when I'm talking to a trans, like I will I don't even want to say humor them because I feel like that's insulting. But it's really I'll keep the peace and I want to have a conversation. I want to oblige you, but and we talked about this
Okay.
last time. I want to have this conversation, but when it comes to harming society, I take a stand. I put my foot in the ground, like, no, this is the line in the sand. You don't
See,
cross it.
now, that statement resonates with me because that's where I stand.
Yeah,
That's where I stand. Yeah. And what happens is often if we evaluate each of these ideas of even what we're talking about with men participating in female sports, because that's what it is. It is harming society. It
yeah,
is
yeah,
telling women, yes, you've gone a long way, yes, you've progressed, but now get back where you were. Now men are here. We are dominating again. We're just going to do it a different way. Get back
yeah,
over there. Yeah, and it's like all this progress that women have made. Now it's almost irrelevant now. So it's a very odd, strange direction for people who have this mindset. And for me personally, I actually, and I don't know if would recommend this approach for everyone, but I think it's important. Everybody in my life, including you know how to answer a question um, in regards to how I feel about just about anything. Like you already know, even if you don't agree, but you know what's going to come out of my mouth. If somebody
yeah.
says, hey, does James think maybe Hinduism, because there are some nice aspects of Hinduism. I'm sure he believes in like certain aspects, right, Tim? You know, yeah, yeah. But you know what would come out of my mouth, or same thing with some guy, you know, they may say, well, Tim, do you think James is really cool? I mean, I like him on your podcast. Do you think he would address me as my, appropriate pronouns, that I prefer, rather than, whatever, and so you have an idea that for me, there's certain things I just won't do. I won't do them. I won't be rude. I I find that it's almost easier to manage my relationships when I'm just upfront, all the way up front, and not even
Yeah.
trying to argue, but just let everyone know, and putting it on the table and let everyone know this is where I stand, and this is where I am,
Yeah.
and then everyone else can make their decision what they want to do with me, or if they want to implement me in their lives or not. Like even yourself, you and I, we don't agree on every single thing, but there's this mutual understanding, respect for one another, that hey, even if we don't have agreements in every single thing, we can still listen to each other. We can still, and I don't want to appear like I'm attacking the gentleman you're speaking about, but in my opinion, anyone insinuating or I'm going to say even under the impression that you, above all people, don't care about people, they obviously are not paying attention to your character. In my opinion, if anybody insinuated that, if someone suggested that, they implied it, they haven't been paying attention to your character.
Yeah.
They haven't been paying attention. Yeah. So it's as you move forward in these relationships, definitely keep this in mind that things like this don't always just go away.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do resurface, and it's almost like, and I'm not hoping this happens to you, but there's a cost, to some extent, when it comes to holding on to what I'm going to say truth. And I'm not talking about postmodernism of people misinterpreting
Are
what
you
they
talking about
feel
my
truth is.
truth, James? You talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
your
yeah. I'm
truth?
not talking about that. Yeah, yeah. I'm talking about actual reality, objective reality. Okay, aligns with, of course, God's word. So, but yeah, but there is a cost. There's actually one Bible verse I wanted to actually share with you, because it's something I actually shared with your mom not too long ago. Because some of the things we were talking about our relationships becoming more complicated
Yeah.
as we became closer to God. I shared something with her that really surprised her, because I think maybe in the past I may have shared it with her, but it resonated with her, and I want to share it with you. And you probably heard it already. Um, so Jesus says in Matthew 10:34 through 36, do you think that I have come to bring peace to the earth? I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a person's enemies will be those of his own household.
Mhm.
Yeah. So Jesus is letting us know up front that there is a cost when it comes to standing for truth. And he said in John 14:6, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. So um, when we're talking about morality and ethics, which we are, there is a cost that you can't align with the truth and everyone clap and embrace you. That's not how it works. So the more you embrace, these kind of thoughts that align with this biblical reality, you're going to have more of these responses. Um, and I feel like you have a very great approach when it comes to communication, but these issues can be very dear to people's hearts sometimes. Sometimes um, it can be the one of the things that can potentially sever ties with certain people, or even
Yeah.
to some extent. Not that I want that for you, but just something for you to be aware of,
No, I
and
get what you're saying, and thank you for sharing that verse. That's really powerful. I think I might have heard it before, but it makes a lot of sense, And the context that you gave of like you standing up for truth and morals, like that is what will happen, brother versus brother. It comes from your family, right? And a line
oh
does
yeah,
need to be drawn in the sand in those cases. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you were talking about how I do have a different approach when it comes to conversations, and I'm more de-escalation. Let's get on the same team. Let's find some common ground. Let's make everyone
absolutely,
leave
absolutely.
peaceably. And that might be a fault of my own character, where I'll concede certain things for the benefit of that ultimate goal, getting everyone on the same team and not
Mm-hmm.
yelling at each other, not angry. I will entertain what I normally wouldn't. Right? I will put my own preconceived notions of what's right and wrong in certain circumstances aside to benefit the person, because I try to see what's the best way to rationalize and reason with the person. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes I'll concede my own thoughts about something to treat them as they would, as I see would be best effective to communicate with them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe someone's having a temper tantrum or something, and I'll start agreeing with them, right? Or do something to seem on their side so they will trust my word, and then I can kind of influence and get everyone to calm down, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I do see a problem if it. Yeah, I don't think I do let it get like there is a line. I will stand my ground for certain things. Um,
Okay.
but there is definitely things I'm more willing to do for the sake of everyone getting along, and getting that to go together. And that might be my own character flaw of wanting to be liked, needing to be, a peacemaker or
Okay.
whatever. And that is a flaw. You shouldn't have to be liked by everyone. It's not healthy, and that's not going to happen. It's not realistic. Um,
Mm.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah. I was going to say that. I just wanted to say that real quick that and this is just from my observation. It's almost a not a good thing when everyone is embracing you.
no, I
Everyone.
agree.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not always the best position to be in. There's something about a person that has convictions, that has, morality, ethics, and a standard that they're living by. Um, that it pushes back and even convicts people sometimes, even if you're not trying to hurt anybody. But even I'll just give you a simple example. I've had ladies, kind of I don't know, I'm communicating with them, and they're saying, oh, are you trying to be with her? Are you trying to be with her? And I'll remind people in a certain environment as they're trying to talk about stuff as if, I'm as a male, I'm just willing to be with anybody, and I have to let them know, not in a rude way. Oh, I'm actually, I'm a Christian, and I believe that sexual intimacy is reserved for marriage.
Yeah.
And so I'm not trying to make a speech, but it'll just be a statement like that. And even after whomever is around hears that, they approach me differently. Now, some people get uncomfortable and they don't want to be bothered with me. Others will actually become a little bit more curious. And then I've even had some people become antagonistic.
Yeah.
So once you draw that line in the sand, and not in a rude way, and you stand for something, yeah, the dynamic changes. What most people are accustomed to is the kind of molding and sculpting your ways around everyone else's mindset. But when you actually stand for something, especially if it's something that's I'm gonna say and be so bold and say it's the right answer, you know, it's something grounded in reality. Yeah, it's
Well, no, I get you. Well, what's funny is I use objective reality in jest a lot, like as jokes. Like oftentimes I'll ask somebody, "Hey, what's the best dessert?" And they'll tell me whatever answer they have, and I'll tell them they're wrong. It's apple pie with vanilla ice cream on top, straight up. You know, and I'll stand by that, and I'll be like, "No, it's objective, it's a fact, and you're welcome to your opinion, but it's wrong." So I'll do that
yeah,
as a
that's
joke all
funny.
the time, but when it comes down to it, how willing are you to like stand for what's real and what's not? And I think
Yeah.
before I would kind of just stay silent, at least on social media, right? If it's in person, I mean, I don't know. I hadn't been tested too often, but um, on social media and stuff, I would kind of just let things play out. I'd stay silent. I don't really post much anyway. I didn't feel like it was my nature to give my opinion. I didn't have to voice my opinion on everything. And I still feel like I don't
Mm.
have to with every political news cycle that comes out.
Yeah,
But
yeah, of course.
um, I definitely think it is important to, stand up for what you believe in and discern what you believe in. Don't be on the fence about stuff.
Mm.
Uh, you should be able to defend what you believe in and explain your thought process. But I'm
Mm.
also open to, like, I don't be in an echo chamber, see other
Oh, yeah.
perspectives and be open to change for certain things. Obviously there's an objective moral right and wrong about most situations. But yeah, it's just it's definitely a path, and it's interesting going down this road, and it's just
Mm.
harder going from someone getting that from someone you don't really care about doesn't matter, but from one of your core best friends, some of your core best friends, being on the opposite end of it, it's hard, but I encourage you should stand up for what you believe in. And I was more so saying, like, look guys, like, I don't know everything about this, I could even be wrong, but like, I can't learn anything if I don't express these opinions, if I just bottle it up and don't talk about it. And
Mm.
I made the assumption, because that's what I just got from the feeling that we haven't talked about that stuff really at all,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they don't really want to talk about it, or they'd rather not confront about it. they know how some of us stand and some of us don't.
Mm,
So I was kind of saying that, like, more so for the sake of just having the conversation, that yeah, I could be wrong, but like I won't know if we don't express this stuff. And I don't think they were outwardly like that. I don't think they like would have any ill will towards me, right? I don't think
mhm.
that's the case at all with this group of friends.
Okay.
I'm just reacting off of how I felt, you know. Like literally, I went to bed that night. And I was like, wow, like it was just, it hurt. It
Yeah.
was rough.
This happened. Huh? This actually happened.
Uh huh. And then I woke up the
Yeah.
next day and we were fine. But I don't know. I thought it was worth unpacking here because it was like a real emotion that I felt for a while.
Mm. No, no, I know. I think I'm glad you're sharing this because this is the reality of you know, people that like yourself that you're growing in, what I would say is the truth. The truth. And I'm not talking about subjective, but objective. Like actual reality. And for some strange reason, yeah, it's all over in different areas where the more you identify and you stand with objective reality and truth, the more you seem to be an enemy of, I'm going to say, the world. I'm going to say the world, especially in our Western society where a lot of things are backwards now. A lot of things are backwards. And it's interesting because it doesn't, it happens all the time, but it doesn't, I know that it doesn't make it easier to actually go through difficulties where, these are your relationships that you value. And now you're like your relationships are being tested almost, to some extent. And yeah, I've been through quite a bit of experiences like that. I still go through them all the time now. And there's some people I did have to back away from myself. Other people I had to kind of change the dynamic of the relationship. We still keep in touch, we still chat, but they know where I stand and I know where they stand, and we know that that doesn't work, in certain respects, but essentially, like the Bible verse is, it is ultimately a sword that Jesus is he's separating, and there's this idea that Jesus is this I don't know, long-haired hippie sitting on top of a mountain hugging everybody and just wants everybody to love each other. But from the verse, he's not necessarily that. And I don't
Yeah.
know he is a sword. He does divide, and even in my family and even in my household once upon a time, he divided. He divided, And so it's the same thing with friends as well. I've had people think I'm too religious and I think I'm better than everyone. And I don't. In fact, I feel worse about who I was in the past and the things that I could have done better. I feel worse now, but they don't understand that because they just see somebody with a different change and different behavior and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, just moving forward, I would definitely recommend. Of course, naturally connect with your friends. You guys have a wonderful history, but also pay attention to the dynamic of how you're treated, even by just individuals, not necessarily the group collectively, but just individually, because sometimes these situations are um, that test to find out. Um, and I don't want to say I don't want to say like your friendships were faulty, but sometimes they test if you had a strong foundation, a real foundation. You know, yeah, it's this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Some people, yeah, they'll work with you at their own level. And others it'll be very different dynamic.
I get you. Well, I
Yeah, man.
appreciate you
Yeah,
letting me vent that little therapy session there. Like,
yeah, 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 man. It's yeah, I still go through this all the time, so it's not always easy, man.
okay. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your insight there. We did get into some religious undertones there with that whole thing, as we do most times. So we can just roll right over into some religion talk, right? So I wanted to bring up because, as you know, I'm reading the Bible every day. Things are happening. Things are getting good. We're in First Kings now, about halfway
Okay.
through. Going, I think we're on chapter 22 or chapter 21 tomorrow. 22 tomorrow. Um, but
Okay.
yeah, so King David had finished his reign. That was all cool. They got to King Solomon, and he was doing good stuff and was very wise, as was said. The legendary parable of the mom and the kid and splitting him in half, and then the real mom revealing herself by giving the kid away. You know?
That's wild, man.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
wild.
It's funny. That's the only like like story they give. It's like a minor thing, but everything else is just yeah. He's super wise. Everyone came from miles away to go see, and so I thought that was funny. But I don't know if it's one of his sons or what. But basically, after him, a bunch of the kings of Israel were just bad nuts, right? They were given
Yeah.
praising the wrong gods and everything and dishonoring David's name, and God's basically saying like the only reason we're still here is because I made a promise to David and his fathers, all right? That's why we're still trying this. You guys have been, messing up too much. But there has come a prophet named Elijah who is now sparkling some rabble, some debate and stuff. And I wanted to ask
Oh
you,
yeah.
is this the Elijah that is referenced in the Bible, the one I'm at right now, or is there another one later on?
You said Elijah or Elijah because there's two. They have different names.
Oh, I
There's
didn't know that.
Elijah and Elijah.
With a Y and a J is the difference, or what?
No, not with a Y. Let's see. At one point, let's see. At one
Bust
point,
out the old Bible.
one was actually guided by the other. All right. So you're saying Elijah, right, with a J, right?
Yes, Elijah with a J. That's what I'm
Okay.
at.
Okay. So Elijah is going to come later.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
So
All
this
right.
isn't the one because people would call
Yeah,
reference
this
to
is
Jesus
Elijah.
as
This is.
Elijah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I need you to pronounce them both for me into the mic so I can hear it. So one is what?
One is Elijah,
Okay.
and the other is Elijah.
That still sounds the same. I don't know. I don't know if it has different spelling.
Okay. If they do have different spelling. Okay, let's see. Elijah. Okay. Elijah.
That's what I'm on.
Okay, Elijah. Okay, yeah, First Kings. Okay, and then there's Elijah. Elijah. How do I say? How do I spell it? E- Elijah. Is it I?
Okay.
Yeah.
But
There's. I'm trying to remember how to spell it. Gosh.
but it is a different spelling, so it is another person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
which is the one because people will reference Jesus as like Elijah, right? So which is the one that's like I guess referenced as Jesus sometimes?
That would be the. I think this is Elijah that you're talking about.
Okay.
Fire from heaven, right?
Huh?
Fire from heaven, Elijah.
Probably. I haven't gotten to him doing that, but
Oh, okay.
so basically, this guy, he's coming around. It's kind of interesting because I think he just said something, and it's like the Lord is saying this, and the Lord had not talked to him yet, and he's just like speaking truth or something, and then later on, God talks to him. And he's like, "Yeah, no, you were spot on. Say this stuff too," and he goes,
That's funny.
you
That's
know,
funny.
I think he's calling out one of the kings or something, and so
Mm-hmm.
he's saying these things, and then God said, "Go to this tree, and all like some ravens will provide food and water for you," and they did. And then he said, "Go with this woman, and or go to this city, and there's a widow outside the walls that'll take care of you." And so he goes there, and she does, and she's like, "Wait, but I only have like this much flour and dough and this much water for me and my son. I can only bake one cake." And Elijah said, like, "Yeah, no, bake the cake, give it to me first, and then you'll have enough for whatever. You'll be fine." And it said
Yeah.
that it's like the multiplications of the fish and the loaves that Jesus did. That said that
Mhm.
the flour, the bread, whatever, all of her resources, like they had food for weeks.
Yeah. That's right.
It specifically said
That's right.
that, and then later on, I don't know if it's that same son or whatever. Her son dies. It doesn't even say die. It says his spirit left him, right? And
Yeah.
then Elijah
Yeah.
prays to God, and he brings his spirit back to him, and he becomes back alive. So that's a miracle being done.
Yeah.
And so that's what
Yes.
made me think like maybe this is the guy that is compared to Jesus sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. It is Elijah and the other Elisha with a SHA.
Okay,
Yeah.
Shah versus Ja.
There you go. There you go.
Okay,
So
awesome.
it gets a little. A lot of people get mixed up with it, but yeah. But yeah. Elijah is who you're
So
yeah
this is
talking.
the Elijah because I didn't know a Shah
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, he does some really amazing things as you read. He's
That's
yeah.
awesome. I'm so excited. He's already doing so much cool stuff, and then he even
Yeah.
he went to like a temple or something, and he brought all the people and like all 450 of the ambassadors of the other gods that Israel is now praising. You remember this
I love
story?
this. I love this. Yeah.
Yeah, so he brings them all into this place and is like, "Let's do it. Let's have a god off. Let's a competition. We'll both make burnt sacrifices, but don't start the fire. You pray to your god, and we'll see who can do what." Right? So they're praying for like day, morning, evening, and night, like for 2, 3 days. Nothing's happening, and it's like, maybe your gods are asleep. You should pray louder. And they're like yell, they take the time to yell for another couple hours, and they're like praying. They're doing blood sacrifices because that's what it's, you know, um, and nothing happens, right? And then Elijah's just like, "Yo, right here," and like within a matter of hours, like he actually makes an altar to God based on the 12 tribes of Israel, right? The same altar that Jacob made from the stones in the river when they crossed.
Mm.
The river was lowered again. For those of you who didn't know, you only know the parting of the Red Sea. There's another time when God squashed a river for the people of Israel.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so he made an altar of the 12 stones. And yeah, he had a little moat of water around it. Something like that happened. But yeah, there was a burnt offering. It came, it happened, and they had enough people to feed. And all the people of Israel, the congregation, they fell on their face and they were like, "Oh no, oh Lord, we've been serving the wrong people." And the second that happened, Elijah's like, "Lock the doors." he's he said to like make sure they don't escape. The other 450 false prophets. He's
Oh,
like, "Don't let them escape." So they locked all these people in there, and they executed them all for like high treason or whatever. I just thought that was so. I mean, it's badass. I'm sorry, I can't like.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting because as you've said before, a lot of the stories logged in the Bible historically, it's very interesting. Very interesting when you think about these things actually taking place. And there's a lot of people that think the Bible's just about happy stories of just commandments and stuff, but yeah, the Old Testament is loaded with these historical events that like this is some rough stuff. This is some rough stuff.
Yeah,
And God has always been very of course against like idolatry and stuff like that. This is why the first two commandments you really just kind of like reinforce one another, not to have any other gods before him. So idolatry is actually very, very like
it's
this
a
is very
jealous
serious
God.
to God's heart. He considers Israel and his people like when they submit themselves to other gods, even though they're false. It's like pouring yourself to it's like the bride being cheating on her
Yeah,
husband. So yeah, it's a very serious thing. But I think sometimes people kind of underestimate how serious that is with God. And this is why for us Christians, it's important not to have idols, even in our homes, from other religions and stuff. And there's times where people have, offered me stuff, and I say, "Oh no, 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 thanks. I'm a Christian. I can't have any other idols." And I say that to educate them, but also to let them know, not to offer that in the future either. Like God's a
yeah.
jealous God. He made that very clear. He's a jealous God. And that also means not putting any other person or thing in this world before him as well.
Uh huh. No, that
Yeah,
that
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. And with what he's saying and what he's done in the Old Testament, with he's trying so hard with the people of Israel, right? It's his chosen people. It's like like it's like a better at a horse race, right? Your horse is in last, and they're like, "Come on, I have faith in you. I got you the new shoes. I got you the jockey that knows what he's doing. I've cleared the way. I've literally uh, presented your other horses on a platter for you, right? Your enemies, I've given them to your hands, right? Um,
Uh,
and you still find a way to be in last place. Um, but he's still staying true to the promise he made to their forefathers and to David, and he's
yeah.
bringing other prophets to come and show them the way and tip the scales, and it's
Mm.
always recorded that like whenever they're intermingling with other tribes and accepting their gods, that's when he delivers them into their enemies' hands.
Yeah. Yes. 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 It's interesting. Tim, just to see that dynamic because I remember early on when I started reading the Bible and familiarizing myself with these stories, I used to say, well, that's kind of stupid. Why would Israel go against God or forget about God when he parted the sea, when he's done all these miracles, when he fed
Countless
them this food
miracles.
out of nowhere and the bread and manna from heaven and he healed these people and he killed people and opened up the ground and swallowed, like there's all these different stories that they know what God can do. And
Yeah.
then it's like after one of these, catastrophes of his wrath, they kind of get back on track. And then it's almost like, they drift eventually. The next generations, they drift again and again and again. It's like every book again, and so I used to think, man, what's wrong with these people? And then I thought to myself, they remind me of me.
Yep. Yep.
They remind me of me. I do that.
Yes,
I
sir.
know for 100% certainty there are times God helped me or saved me or delivered me from something. And early on, I'm like, oh man, God, you are wonderful. You are this, you're that. And I love you so much and gratitude. And then I'm looking at myself drift in certain ways and I said, oh yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing the exact same thing.
Yep.
I'm forgetting God's position in my life, and it's so interesting because he's so kind and he's always, realigning us back to where he wants. But yeah, it's I feel like the more you grow into your relationship with God, the more sensitive you are about that being derailed by your own, and he always brings you back. Like it's interesting how when I was in a place in my life where I thought I was a Christian, I really wasn't. Anytime somebody acknowledged my strengths, I patted myself on the back and I took it with pride, took it with pride. Yeah, that is me. I really tried my best. Yeah, well, thank you. I've been trying to work on that, and now I don't even want to be associated with the word good, because I know who I really am inside without God. I know who I am,
Yeah.
and I'm not a very nice person, so
That's a good point. Like without God's grace, because I thought I was
way.
okay before, right? I thought I was decent, and everyone does, right? But I see now,
Okay.
like being exposed to like God's moral law and everything, and how specific things get. Like you realize, no, you are a sinner, right? And
Mm.
it's only with God's grace and the calling to read the Bible every day and this nourishment to my soul that's given me that I feel like less inclined to do those things, right? And just thinking about myself before or myself without God and how much more I would be doing these things in general, these like sinning more often. You're right. It's spot on about like, with God and being without God. And then also for what you were saying, I made a little video about this when I started talking about it on social media with the Bible stuff, little Bible studies with me and Aurora. We might
Mm.
bring that back soon, but
Nice. Yeah, I like those.
yeah. So we were talking about the concept of this was before the 40 years they were going through the desert, right? And God just delivered them from Exodus or from Egypt in the story of Exodus, and did all these miracles for them, and they still always find ways to not believe in Him and to not trust Him. So, and I
Serious.
remember thinking all the time in modern day, like, why don't we see miracles nowadays, right? Why do bad things still happen? Why do all these things? Why is God not more physically present? Like, there's not stories of that going on today, right? And I realized, like, after reading, like, it wouldn't matter. Like, if the people back then, you know, still
Yeah.
saw that stuff with their own eyes, not even generation
Yeah.
apart, they saw multiple miracles with their own eyes. If they
Yeah.
still found ways to not believe in God and to tempt Him
Yeah.
and to, like,
Yeah.
not trust Him, how doomed would we be? Even if we had all those miracles, we don't stand a chance. Like, it's
Uh,
so that really like made it really clear to me that burning question I had for a long time. There's no point. Like we're kind of a lost, we're fallen. And it makes more sense of, especially now, even going further down, the Israelites still continue to do this, and you see the benefit when they trust God and trust Him as their Savior, and when they don't. You know,
mm.
so. I feel like God just kind of gave Jesus to get his hands off the button. I can't deal with this anymore. We'll do a one and done. Good luck. You know.
Yeah, it's no, it's interesting. It's a very interesting dynamic, evaluating that because God is just, even for me, he is just so good. He is so good, and I feel like I mean, literally every day I can see His grace in me because I don't always have the most positive thoughts, especially when somebody's rude to me. Sometimes it's getting easier to respond in love and say, oh, you know what, that person's outside of Christ. They don't have any control over and it's easy to say that, but yeah, there are times where it's like, man, that's common sense. Like you should have known to do this or do that or what's wrong with in my head. But yeah, it's just it's fascinating how um, I don't know if you're aware of this, but between the last book in the Old Testament, Malachi, and the Gospel of Matthew, God stopped talking to Israel, for like 400 years. There's a yeah, he just stopped talking to them. There was no prophets, there was no nothing, and so and we call this the intertestamental intertestament intertestament error or something like that. But yeah, he stopped talking because yeah, Israel wasn't listening. They weren't listening, so he just stopped talking. He just stopped, for 400 years. And you're absolutely right. Even if he raised, people from the dead today, and even if he, did these miracles, it would just be a matter of time before all of us we would just go back to the same stuff anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, that actually doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah,
No,
it's a hardness of heart.
you definitely have a point there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I guess we can
yeah,
get back to the other point we were talking about. I don't know,
yeah,
I
yeah. Go
forget
for
the
it.
exact context, but what I wrote down was how we feel about the reality of the Bible, right? Because
Mhm,
it was bringing into question like reality and like being based and grounded in that, right? And how,
mhm,
like you said about sex being your bones will determine your sex years later, right? None of your whatever you think you are now, however you have society think you are now, that's not going to matter later on, right? The fact is still the fact.
mhm.
Um,
Correct.
so how do you justify that? Because obviously we take the Bible as fact; it's God's word and everything. But
Mhm.
from others' perspective, right, playing a little devil's advocate, like coming back from that argument, they would argue like that isn't what we believe isn't fact either, right? It's more of a belief. So I guess what would
Mm.
you say to that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would encourage everyone to just keep in mind that everything that we support is a belief. Everything we support. The atheist has their own set of beliefs. The people who would challenge us in regards to um, the fact that we believe the Bible is an authority. They have a worldview as well, and I think that that's something that I would address with them. This is what I typically do with people: is I will ask them what is their worldview. Now, some people don't know how to answer that, so I'll just ask them a few questions just to unpack these things. And most of the time, there's this understanding of we're all really animals and the Big Bang theory, and so I'll just explore those things and just ultimately showing them that you have a belief as well. You believe 13.7 billion um, years ago there was a Big Bang, and now we have all these different animals and four seasons, and we have the cosmos and all these beautiful arrangements of nature because of some type of cosmic accident. So I just to help somebody believe that you also have a belief system, you also have a worldview, you also believe in this, and you have to believe it by faith
Yeah,
because you didn't see the comet or whatever strike the earth, or you didn't see any of this, so you also have a belief system. It's the same thing.
but as far as like
Yeah, but
that,
just to kind of
go ahead, finish up.
go ahead. Yeah, 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 yeah. I was just gonna say that that's one of the things I would remind someone of because I think it's very easy to attack believers and say, oh, you believe in this book or you believe it, but they're saying that, but they also have their belief in something, whether it's a scientist or someone else, a philosopher or themselves, but they also have a belief system in something or someone that we could also cross-examine and find out that it's not necessarily fact or truth or reliable. So I think just the first thing is make sure that they understand that they're not in a better position necessarily. They also have a belief system. So that's one thing I would.
Yeah, and I've seen that before in like referencing like textbooks, right, versus like the Bible, and it's like, yeah, you're reading something someone wrote. It's the same thing, right? It's like you're just believing in them. It's trust, it's faith. Um, what I've heard an argument to that. Well, first of all, let me address your other point about like seeing things. Like you didn't see a comet happen, right? Did it really happen? So are you saying that like the whole concept of object permanence, right? You learn with babies that they don't really have object permanence. When they don't see you, they think you're not, like, you don't exist, That's why peekaboo works so well. They're like, where did they go? They totally disappeared. So do you need to see things for it to be real? That's a
I mean, no, I don't know how an elevator works, but I know that the likelihood of me dying in it is slim to none, But I
yeah.
know it's a possibility. But yeah, I don't know how it works. I couldn't explain it to you. But, so it's the same concept. It is by faith. It is by faith that
Okay.
I believe the elevator is not going to.
Okay.
But yeah, yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it
You know,
does. I'm just saying, as far as, I don't know, you didn't see a comet, so it didn't happen, or maybe I misheard you, or
for me, I would ask questions.
yeah.
So let's say, for example, I was present with an evolutionist. I would say, um, where did you get the information regarding this cataclysmic situation? Where did you get the information? So just that question alone, they have to tell you what their source is, and it's speculation from someone.
Uh huh.
And even if they gave me a name, I would say, okay, how do you know that so and so, you know, um, is right, or whatever. So just by asking simple questions, it dismantles that entire idea. So I think sometimes we have people that try to speak over the Christian as if they have facts and we have a belief system, but no, they also have a belief system as well.
Yeah. No, I definitely noticed that, but as far as
Mhm.
the oh man, I just had it.
Mhm. This is regarding evolution.
Not necessarily. It's more so just having faith in other people's writings, I suppose.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Actually, yeah. I mean that to me is, I think, one of the hardest things to argue with, in from my understanding, is the historical facts that we find in the Bible. You know, like, there are people where we would argue that, okay, well, um, you know, the Bible is not written in such a way where it's like once upon a time in Atlantis,
yeah.
or it's obviously talking about Egypt, it's talking about Greece, Athens, Greece. Is talking about locations that you and I can get on a plane with and actually visit. So that's one thing to keep note of is, there's obviously these places are not fictional.
What
They're
about
real
the
life.
Garden of Eden?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, and then we also get the reason why it became no longer available to us. You know, but it is also by faith. So the idea is that I wasn't there in the beginning to see all these things, but I do know somebody who was,
Yeah.
and that is, of course, God. But it's, for me, I prefer, um, to take sometimes the historical approach. Some people like to go for the prophecies. Those are, kind of difficult to kind of debunk. When Jesus tells, prophesies that, his body is going to be, destroyed, but he's going to raise it up. And everyone at the time in the gospel was like, what the heck are you talking about? Nobody's trying to kill you. But he was killed 3.5 years later. And he
Yeah.
did raise his body up himself, you know. And so now it's like, okay, now we have it on record in the gospels, and we have the record that he lifted himself up, So it's, yeah,
So
it's very, very interesting dynamic. But
yeah, I
yeah, you
I
know.
remember the point
Go
I
ahead.
was going to make about earlier. It was about, I guess, scientific base. The scientific theory is based on like repeatable evidence, right? So when you're talking, I guess you're saying like, yeah, the scientific way has a faith method too. You believe in what that person wrote, and I think that might get a little dangerous because then it's like, how do we determine? Well, if anything is real, if everything is subject to
Correct.
trust, right?
Correct.
How do we determine
Correct.
if anything is real?
Correct. Birth
And
certificate, ID, absolutely. I
yeah,
agree.
so with the part of like repeatable evidence, how does that kind of play into it? Because I guess the scientists would
Like
argue about
scientific method, or what do you mean? The
sure
scientific method?
the scientific method, and then like if you point to a science book versus I'm not sure how you could do it with the Bible, but I'm assuming
Mhm.
that's a comparison they would make. Like a science textbook, you could like see repeatable evidence. Like you can also go down those steps and come to the same conclusion, right? But I do recognize science has been wrong a lot throughout history, right? With different things you don't know as they
Absolutely.
proves itself wrong and stuff. So
All the time. There's always corrections being made. Yeah, and one thing I do want to clarify, just for those listening, is that the Bible is not against science, and science is not against the Bible. Science simply means knowledge. That's all it means. It just means knowledge. And there is a scientific method, and I think it's very reliable. However, if you, for example, applied it to evolutionary theory, then you can't use it. You know, then
uh
you can't use it. Yeah, because I mean, there's no way we're going to see a monkey turn into I don't know, a human being. And supposedly it's supposed to take millions of years, but no one's ever seen that. It's simply a theory. So um, there's different speculations on that, but I think there's this idea that because evolutionary theory is associated with science, and I say associated because it's not scientific. It's not something that is obviously observable. It's not repeatable. You know, but yeah. So when it comes to the Bible, it is by faith, but at the same thing, the same way, it's the same thing with
we take
the
faith with
evolution.
science and a lot of those evolution, like you said.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And it gets really tricky because there's like six different definitions of evolution, and I mean that's a tricky thing in itself to really deal with. But in my opinion, there's only one that actually is realistic, but the other remaining five is they're I don't know, they're fictional. They can't be possibly real. Cosmic evolution, planetary evolution, stellar evolution. Like no one's seen a star being designed. So we can't even we don't have a starting point from the evolutionary standpoint or how planets form. It's only a theory based on this idea that something there was an explosion, and so it's really just and I know it's become very popular, and there's a lot of people who even identify as Christians support it. But if it doesn't align with God's word, then we have to kind of learn to put that aside. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's a very interesting discussion. I mean, one of the videos I would recommend everyone actually check out is Evolution versus God. Ray Comfort posted from Living Waters Ministry, and he spoke to a variety of um, physicists, students, scientists, um, you know, people in academia here in California, and maybe two different universities at the time. And it was very interesting how he initiated a very interesting conversation with everyone, and he just helped them understand that evolution itself is not scientific. It's not. You can't apply the scientific method to evolution. And it's interesting because it's almost like it's no one actually, no one really explores asking questions to people that have an evolutionary background. No one ever asks questions. It's almost like assumed that it's correct. But if I speak to an evolutionist, I say, well, can you give me the evidence for, you know, I don't know, monkeys to men? What is going to come out of that person's mouth? And they may make reference to different books and things like that, but those are only theories. Those are only theories. So, people in this position, they don't have anything to stand on. For the Christian, I have God's word. I have God's word. He's never been wrong. We have over 300 prophecies that have taken place in the Bible that has actually took place in history. All these different things that even in the Old Testament, we have things that were going to happen in the future, and they actually took place. Whether it was Nineveh, whether it was the existence of Jesus, books eight, uh, speaking about Jesus and his death, 800 years before he even showed up. So it's even the fact that the nation of Israel were going to lose their land and then eventually get it back again. Like all these different things are already addressed in the Bible. These prophecies have actually been fulfilled in history. So it's
Yeah.
kind of to argue with those things, but yeah, it's one thing I just want to say is that for people that are against the Bible, typically it's not about science. It's really that they don't want God to exist. They enjoy their adultery, their pornography, their lying, their stealing, their reckless, lawless life. They enjoy that, so they don't want there to be a God. So this is why we actually are called to call people to repent. And apologetics is important. We do want to address these topics with people, but ultimately the idea is to always get straight to the gospel, and that is that we broke God's law and Jesus paid our fine. But yeah. So for me, it's and you have the evidence Bible. There's plenty of different questions that are asked, by evolutionists, by people that are outside of Christ that want to know why is there so much evil in the world? Why didn't God knew all this was going to happen? Why did He allow this to happen? Why does babies die and all these things? And it really comes down to sin.
Yeah. No, that's a really
Yeah.
good point, and I've thought about more recently, like people not wanting there to be a God, right? It's because we don't recognize our own moral sin, right? We don't have a moral standard, and once you acknowledge that, it's hard to you don't want to acknowledge it because then you'll be seen as bad, right? People don't want to paint themselves as bad. They don't want to accept that they
Mm.
could have been wrong before, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard this stance with people that are pro-choice because of they had one before in their decision in life, right? So they don't want to see
Mm.
themselves as something that's awful or whatever, right? They're too scared to take that step, right? Even though they
Oh
might
yeah.
feel a certain way, they'll always support it because they were a part of it. So they're afraid to confront their own sin or their own faults, and they'll just act like it's okay in society and just go along with the masses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of extends to that people don't want there to be a God because there is a moral code, there is a moral law and a standard, and it is
Absolutely.
ultimately revealing. It is hyper revealing. Like nothing can hide from it. And when we examine
Absolutely.
ourselves and hold ourselves to that, we can kind of acknowledge like we are sinners and we do need God's grace, and we can humble ourselves to kind of come to that conclusion. But I think that's why a lot of people are repulsed by it and don't even want to acknowledge the idea. They might like some of the messages, the Jesus loves messages or whatever, but when it comes down to brass tacks, meat and potatoes, they're not about it, and they will reject it
Mm.
because it will highlight their own faults, and they don't want to
Mm.
accept that something that they thought was right or something that wasn't a big deal is actually, a grave sin.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, no. I love the way that you phrase that, Tim. And to be honest with you, I mean, I don't. I try not to be rude when I'm speaking to those that are antagonistic with the biblical worldview. But even like for one of my buddies that I think I told you about that has an atheistic worldview, he's a really cool guy. But anytime we're talking about morality and justice and ethics, I have to interrupt him and I have to say, well, you're an atheist. You don't get to say um, what's right or wrong because you don't have a standard. And I tell that to anybody that opens their mouth and says something like that. Well, this is good or this is bad. It's like, well, based on what standard?
Yeah.
Based on what standard? And I've even challenged him, regarding that, not in a rude way, but I was just saying, well, why is it that what Hitler did to 6 million Jews, and killing them in the Holocaust? Why is that wrong? Why is that wrong based on your worldview?
Yeah.
And he'll say, well, it's not good for society. And I may say, well, in Germany around that time period, Germany actually flourished. Its economy actually flourished because all these people were not only killed, but their wealth was, distributed into the economy of Germany. It actually flourished,
I didn't know that.
greatly during the time period. Yeah, it did. It did. So I would, again, it's like when you don't have a Christian biblical worldview, it's really hard to enter the conversations of morality and justice and injustice. It's very difficult to,
I
if a person is actually asking questions, it's really
Yeah.
difficult to, and very
I
difficult.
think we acknowledge that it's hard, but they have no preconception. They're fine doing it. They don't think
Well,
it's
yeah,
hard at
yeah,
all,
yeah, yeah, exactly. But I'm telling you, and this is why I ask questions because, and not to, not to. ramble but yeah, it's really like taking the what they thought they were standing on and removing it and showing like, well, you've been masquerading all this time as if you had a standard, and you don't. You
Uh-huh.
don't have a standard. You don't have anything to stand on.
Well,
Yeah,
that brings
that's like when somebody makes the truth claim. Yeah, it's like they'll say, "Oh, the Bible. No one really knows what the truth is." And I'll say, "Okay, well, is that true? What you just said, is that true?"
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, it's like you don't have anything to stand on. It's really difficult to, and it's not our job to tease people, but to just demonstrate that they're not in the position to have these discussions about
Yeah.
morality and justice when they don't have a standard.
That's a really good lead into this next thing I want to talk to you, because you referenced your atheist friend earlier and you said, "Oh, he's a good guy. He does, good things." So, can atheists or
Yeah,
can
he's decent.
yeah, yeah. So, can
Mhm.
atheists and can people be good without a moral standard, right? This can go into two parts, like whether
Mhm.
they know or not about the moral standard, if they're ignorant to it, or if they do acknowledge it and reject it, right? So, ignorance and
Mhm.
then rejection of a moral standard. Um, and how do those two groups play? If there, can there be good people in both parties? Like, and yeah, basically that's the question, because obviously what it leads to, right, is where we're at as a society with like no moral standard and uh, political corruption. Like it's awful, right? The fall of man, original sin, plays into all the faults of humanity. So acknowledging all that, there are still good people that aren't all Christians and stuff. So how does that kind of play into this?
Yeah, yeah. Let me just share a quick verse and then, well, maybe two here. They're real short, but then it'll kind of help me lead into what I want to say. Romans 3:23 says, "For all have sinned and have fall short of the glory of God." Okay, but this is the more important, more relevant um, one here. Mark 10:18. And Jesus said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone.
Uh huh.
No one is good except God alone." This is precisely why anytime anyone ever refers to me as a good man, going to be a great future husband, good teacher, good coach, good whatever, I always correct them. I always correct them because I myself, I'm not good. According to the Bible, no one is good but God alone. So we can do good things and we can have good intentions, but we are not good. Even after we transition to believers by the grace of God, we ourselves are not good. Only God is good alone. You know, and so yeah, so we can actually, and again, it goes back to what is your worldview or what is the standard of good. Now, because I'm a Christian, now I know what the standard is. So now I don't associate myself with it because if you look in the dictionary, one of the definitions is moral perfection. Okay, I know that's not me.
Yeah.
That's definitely yeah. That's yeah. So yeah, my buddy, he's really cool. Definitely, I think he's doing great things in his life. He's just recently bought a house here in Los Angeles. He has a lovely family. He's providing for his family. So I know he has good intentions for his family, and he's really displaying that. But being whether he's good or not, no, I would not say he's not good. You
Okay.
know,
Take
yeah, yeah.
taking that kind of out of it, then maybe maybe not
Mhm.
being good, but can people fall into the slots of what the moral standard and God's moral law would want for us, right? For a devout follower of God, right? There's a certain lifestyle, or I guess just certain works that He calls us to do, right? Um,
Mm.
is it possible for people without this moral standard, via ignorance or rejection, to still accomplish these tasks? To still be, you know, maybe fumble their way into uh, some like actions or a lifestyle that God would approve of. Approve of is the wrong word because we know what He approves and what He doesn't.
Yeah,
But do you
yeah,
get what I'm
yeah, yeah.
saying?
Yeah, yeah. And I was gonna say like this is precisely why the Christian worldview. It's actually I mean, it's difficult to perform these things sometimes because it goes against our flesh and things like that. But because we have the standard, it's actually very easy to say, "Oh, that's wrong. Oh, that's right." So everything for us should be black and white. It's very easy.
Yeah.
It's very easy. God's already He's already spoken. you know, yeah. In regards to, let's say, for example, even my buddy I'm making reference to. Um, if you were to say, how many decent, great things he has done, I could name quite a few, quite a few, on his behalf. How he's helped people, he's helped me move, he's helped me, with a lot of different things, and however, I'll give you an example of something that he did that I can't approve of. Is he once upon a time we worked together, and he decided that he would help himself to a woman that was married, and I don't think her marriage was going very strong at the time, and so she was very, I don't know if I want to say vulnerable or susceptible, but next thing I knew, he and her decided that they were going to start a relationship together. Mind you, she was still married, but eventually, almost a year into their relationship, she went through with her divorce, and it was finalized finally. And so he is, as of right now, still with this woman and has a child with her. So when I say, like, this guy, he's doing great things. Obviously, there are certain things that he's doing, but he committed adultery, and he's still with the woman today. So both of them are actually going to have to answer to God one, you know, which is, it's unfortunate. And I've warned both of them individually and together. I've warned both of them what's going to be waiting for them if they don't repent and turn to Christ, and I try to keep it polite. I try to keep it, but I also, have shared what verse, that they need to hear. And, I think both of them is sort of kind of, not really taking it seriously. But I think part of the reason why I associate with him is because I'm fearful of what's going to happen to him.
Yeah.
I think some of it is, I enjoy his conversations and but yeah, it's just, so I'm using him as an example, but I believe that everybody that you would be making reference to is like that. If they can do some really great things, they can be building nonprofits, they can be offering lots of money to the poor, they can be doing a lot of different things, but ultimately they are rebels against God. They're
Yeah.
enemies of God. They hate him. And everybody has a story like that, something in the background that
Yeah. So I appreciate you tying it back together to the topic. And that makes sense. There's two sides of that coin. There's and so I guess the question is, like, do true converts, because it's the story of like true converts versus false converts, where like false converts are more likely to refer to the other side of the coin, be more susceptible to that darker side, right, and sinner side. Where I guess a true convert just doesn't. I mean, not that no one's perfect, but doesn't go as harsh. Or what's the line here? Because you can say that
Mhm.
about anybody, right? That we have the ability to do great evil, um, and I know God wants us to do things a certain way and believe in Him. Um, so I guess then you would say that, yeah, that people of that other side that don't believe, that reject or are ignorant of the moral law, they can accomplish these works, right? They can do these good things just as much as they can do these bad things, even though they might be probably more likely to do the bad things without the moral law.
See where you're going with this. Yeah, I would say, I mean, even for this guy, um, he's the type of person that if there's somebody, for example, asking for money and he has money, he's going to offer to them. So, we would all look at it and say, oh, that's a good deed. That's something nice that he's doing. That's something, So obviously, something like that would align with what God wants, is for us to
Yeah.
give to the poor, give to others, serve others before. Um, but I guess the best way to really um, identify the difference is really uh, changed behavior, because it's very easy to just put on a religious mask and things like that and just kind of go through these routines, because there's people who do it all the time. There's people in cults that read their Bibles every day, but just because they read it every day doesn't mean they're right or walking with God.
Yeah,
They
and
have
works doesn't
completely
get you to
different.
heaven anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, but yeah, but Jesus has shared that you'll recognize people by their fruits. You'll recognize them by their fruits, and the fruit is the biblical way of saying that there are certain things that a person will produce that demonstrates a godly nature. Um, so the fruit of the spirit, for example, in Galatians 5:22 and 23, um, is love and joy and peace and patience and kindness, and even the last attribute is self-control. So you're going to see those attributes in a real believer, and they're going to grow. But for a false believer, they won't grow at all, even if they're wrapped up with religious activity. And it could be somebody that has convinced themselves that they love God, but you're never going to see them actually grow. You know, they'll always be the same person, and they're always going to be going back to the same stuff. So the Bible does have a specific standard for.
That
Um,
that makes
mhm,
sense what you're saying. And
mhm,
and I get you that they're more likely to go to the bad part of it. But just even when you were thinking of it in the context of what you said earlier, where like, because this is something that
mhm,
I've struggled with as a Christian, like trying to understand. I hear it said all the
mhm.
time, like what you said. There's no moral standard for them, right? So how do you know right from wrong? And obviously they'll say like societal pressure and everything, right?
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's usually the
yeah,
first
and
answer is society.
I've talked about before how like a lot of good lessons I've learned in my life I thought I came from other places. Now reading through the Bible, I understand it actually comes from the biblical foundation. A lot of it does.
Mhm,
We're not special
mhm,
because we're living in a different time. People, the human body, soul has been going through these troubles and tribulations for thousands of years. But
absolutely.
as far as I still have trouble thinking that like people without accepting our or God's moral standard, ignorance or rejection of it, that they can't do a good work or that they won't understand right from wrong because they don't have the exposure to God's moral law. I have trouble with that, and that's why I'm asking these questions and everything because like
Okay.
we both said, people can do good works and not that good works get you to heaven and all that, not that that's the end
Yeah,
goal,
yeah,
but that they
yeah,
can
yeah.
do
We
them
all have,
works.
well, yeah, Timothy. We all have a conscience.
Yeah. And
We all
that's
have a
another
conscience.
if I could just real quick, because I was going to bring up the conscience that I used to think, and I think that's still the case, where it's like it's one of our biggest signs of the Holy Spirit, right, within us, like God's divine gift of a conscience telling us right from wrong. But like you said, the conscience can be subjective. I or
Yeah, yeah, it could be seared. It could be damaged.
okay,
Yeah. So, for example, someone that you know uh, hurts little children, for example, obviously they've worked themselves to that point. That it's okay. So they've been searing, they've been damaging their conscience. But that's the tool that God has given everyone. No matter who you are, even later on, if you become a Christian, God pulls you out of that darkness and into His light. You still have a conscience, but it's almost like it's more sensitive. But every atheist or evolutionist or everyone has a conscience. If you steal something, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. If you're having sex outside of marriage, there's something in you that, oh, I shouldn't have done that. It's there's always, that's the tool that God has given every man and woman to differentiate between right and wrong. Now the issue is when a person is still severed from God and they come into this world in their sinful nature and they haven't been freed from that, they are considered a slave to their sinful nature. Jesus says those who practice sin are a slave to sin. They're a slave to it. So my illustration is always think of like a chain keeping somebody locked up in a corner. It's like
yeah,
it doesn't matter if you use sex or medication or therapy or music to try to make yourself positive and stuff. You're still chained until God removes that chain. You're chained. Like there's no way that you're gonna. And so all the self help books or gurus is not gonna unchain you. It's not a intellectual thing. It's a spiritual issue.
okay,
Mm. Yeah, but everyone has a conscience. So whether they're atheists or we all know how to give money to the poor, and we all know how to help somebody change their tire or push their car out the street if they're stranded. We all know how to do that. Yeah, but it's but it's almost like for those outside of Christ, and even myself formerly, um, I was a slave to my sinful nature. So if I have to choose between me and someone else, it's me,
Yeah.
me. Because the world revolves around me. It's about my needs, my wants. It's
So
about what.
yeah, so true conversion is where the true like good works can take place at least consistently.
Oh yeah, yeah. And other than that, without that, a person,
It's
no
a
one is
happenstance.
capable of
It's
doing it
just a
consistently.
chance, right?
Yeah, yeah. No one's capable of doing it consistently.
I'd
So if
agree to that. I with this
mhm,
change and everything that I've seen. Um, okay, because like I said, the reasoning behind asking all those questions just always had trouble with that specific concept.
mhm.
Um, but I suppose it makes more sense, without that moral standard, there's no consistency of good works, right? I guess, and like we said about the other thing, like not having core beliefs, right? You're
Mm.
liable to flip flop, and you're liable to give in to
Oh,
something that
absolutely.
isn't right, that isn't truth, if you don't hold
Yeah,
yourself to any standard. So that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. There's one verse I want to share. Actually, it's like three verses. It's in First John chapter 3. I wanted to share with you. Um, and First John is my favorite book in the Bible. I just want to kind of go through it. It says in First John 3:7 through 10, little children, let no one deceive you. Whoever practices righteousness is righteous, as he is righteous. Whoever makes a practice of sinning is of the devil, for the devil has been sinning from the beginning. The reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the works of the devil. No one born of God makes a practice of sinning, for God's seed abides in him, and he cannot keep on sinning because he has been born of God. By this it is evident who are the children of God and who are the children of the devil. Whoever does not practice righteousness is not of God, nor is the one who does not love his brother.
That says it all, really.
I'm telling you, First John, that's my favorite book. Love it. It's like only 5 chapters, but it's packed with so much, so
Yeah,
much.
I think you answered it pretty well. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's an important topic. I think that's actually one that's going to be going on even throughout your lifetime is how do you recognize a genuine believer or not? Because you're going to find a lot of people that you're going to meet and it's, oh, yeah, yeah, we're Christians too. And you just, oh, that's cool. And then you embrace them as a brother and something's going to happen that's going to reveal like, okay, this doesn't seem very Christian like. And so it's one thing for a person to stumble because all of us Christians will continue to stumble. But somebody that is making provisions for sin, that they're arranging sin, that they're embracing it, that it's a regular practice and they're implementing it in their life. There's something wrong if they're supposed to be a Christian because God's going to, God's in the business of molding his children. He knows how to handle it.
Yeah,
God is the author of our faith, and he's going to be the finisher of our faith.
yeah, that's powerful stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
yes, it is.
I don't know how you feel. I did have like one more little thing I could bring up, or if we can wrap up if you want. It's been a long one
I have
already.
like 4% of my phone. I mean,
We okay, so another hour then. Uh, all right, yeah, we can wrap up. I'll save that topic for later. I wrote it down.
oh,
This is a really nice one though. We got into a good religion section here.
yeah, this
Uh,
was really good. Actually, packed with a lot.
All right. So, just to close up, before we do, we didn't have any questions this week. Been kind of lacking on asking people on our social medias.
Yeah, I have to get on that, man.
Yeah. No. Same. I run this thing and I still forget. I got so much other stuff going on. But if you're listening and you'd like to send us a question, we'd love to hear from you. Just email us at stageclearpod@gmail.com. Again, that's stageclearpod@gmail.com. That's the preferred place for your questions. Feel free to go to the YouTube channel, like, comment, subscribe. We have open discussions there in the comments. We got some good ones for the Will Smith slap debacle. So yeah, we'd love to hear your questions there too. We'll respond to you. Love to hear feedback, and then all the links and everything to our social media to get a more direct line. If you have a question or anything, we'd love to hear it and have it on the cast to talk about. We've had some good ones, oftentimes going an extra hour sometimes, depending on the question. Um, So a lot of good potential here. We love hearing from you guys. We appreciate you guys listening. Means the world to us. Um, Again, if you could give us a rating or leave a comment and just tell like one other person, if you like the content, you like what you're doing, tell one other person that might like a topic or might like something we said, show them the YouTube or whatever. We have a bunch of different stuff there. So yeah, we'd love to hear it from you guys, and we appreciate you listening. James, you want to close us in some prayer before your phone dies here?
Absolutely, sir. It'll be
Yeah.
a privilege, man. Heavenly Father, once again, thank you so much for this privilege of just using us as vessels to share your truth. Just continue to watch over our families, watch over us, just to influence and um, just continue to share the things that you desire for us to share, and just continue to mold us in the Son of your, just the mold of your Son Christ. Continue to just mold us and influence our families and the people that we have access to, and just continue to use this channel as a great opportunity for us to have great connections and just grow in the Lord and just influence people. And just thank you for everything that you are offering us, and just watch over our relationships, even with the people that we disagree with, Lord. And there are people that belong in our lives. Strengthen those relationships, and if there are people that we shouldn't be associating with, or maybe it's not very healthy, please deal with those relationships the way you know how. Thank you for everything that you continue to pour in our lives, knowing we don't deserve any of these things. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All
All
right, man.
right.
I did like what you said there. It's not about, your truth. It's not about my truth. It's about his truth, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's the goal. That's awesome, man. Speak, preach. All right.
Hallelujah.
Great one, buddy. I'll see you next week.
All right.